The boy dives into it, then suddenly realizes he's got to spin the plan the other way, knowing exactly how it'll go, so he scribbles it all down. And as he daydreams about a world with no TVs or smartphones, he can't help but grin because magic is insanely cool and ridiculously fun. The main character beams as he thrusts his hands skyward. This place is his absolute dream world. His father once told him he was the real deal, a magician from a whole bloodline of them, and as a kid he ate that belief up. Then, right in the middle of the show, a man lunged in with a knife and stabbed the magician, yet somehow he stayed standing. He didn't even realize it was a trick. He never had a real father to guide him, so he clung to magic like a crutch he didn't need. Too bad he knew magic wasn't real, yet at 17, some stubborn part of him still secretly hoped it was. He pressed the girl for answers, demanding to know why she was leaving, because he needed her help to keep the black magic lab from getting shut down. And she didn't sugarcoat it. She was done with that kind of weird crowd like them. The girl leans in and asks, "So is every mentor like this? Because you don't even have to walk me home, unless you're already fallen for me." She turns around and starts walking off, then the guy spots a car charging straight at her. He sprints in and shoves her out of the way, saving her, but it all backfires and he lands himself in deep trouble. He hears a voice and snaps to attention. Wait, it isn't Japanese, and the speaker isn't Japanese either. And then he realizes he's stuck in this weird room, like some kind of hospital, with zero idea where he's ended up. Then the main character snaps awake and throws his eyes open, only to realize he's a baby, cradled in his parents' arms. Marin's clan sets a plate on the table, and Abel, only 2 years old, already feeds himself with this shocking smartness like a little genius. Then his father just smiles and says, "That's because he's our son." A man rushes up to his pregnant wife and tells her his younger sister should raise a smart kid too, while the main character starts wondering if he's really just hungry for ramen because Abel Balik is his name in this world. Eyes squeezed shut, Marin's parents whisper prayers to his ancestors, and the boy can't help noticing their red eyes and pale white hair, clan traits that stand out like a badge. He swears this is a continent he's never even heard of, and with zero electrical appliances, it feels like he's been dropped into a whole new world. Abel is already 4, and the moment he's part of the Marin clan officially kicks in, he wastes no time. He carves his own wooden totems with a knife like it's his new obsession. A totem is a magical relic the Marine clan can't live without, and during ceremonies, they swear it's the guardian deity made real. Abel's mom gets hurt, brushes it off like it's nothing but a tiny cut, then her husband checks her. He heals her scratch on the spot, and suddenly her finger starts glowing as the wound vanishes. The main character is stunned and blurts out to his father what it is, and his father explains that it's healing magic, Marin clan magic, where they unleash fire, water, and doll magic. This clan's members can wield real magic, so his life wasn't wasted at all. The moment he realizes he can finally sling magic, joy hits him, because he's not dead, he's been reborn, and then he turns and stares at his sister Giselle. She plops down on him and begs him to play, then he tells her to give him a moment to focus on forging the totem, promises she can play on her own for now, and just as he says that, her father shows up. He tells his son, "Don't make totems yet, go play, run around, and keep an eye on your sister." Then he realizes magic is everywhere here, and that thought slams into him so hard he's sure he's not on Earth at all. To master magic, you don't just study, you forge totems, because here spirits cling to nature's objects and even drift through the air. Marin wasn't just a clan of magicians, they were the war's hidden ace, living high on a mountain where magic soaked into every tree, and every kid born there came out with freakish talent for casting. A father leans in and tells his son, "I built you that bow, hunting keeps you strong, and once you start, you'll grow into a real man," while everyone forgets that the war ended more than 100 years ago because peace has been draining magic ever since. Abel believes that even after getting reborn into a magic-filled world, the main character can't catch a break because his little sister keeps throwing obstacles in his way. He's only 7, but his dad slams the truth, there's zero room left for totems, and then asks what he's even going to do about it. His mom says he's still just a kid, but he's already trying to do better, and because he loves totems so much, the neighbors couldn't help but start calling their son Totem Maniac. Then they pressed him, demanding to know where he kept disappearing off to. At just 7 years old, the main kid unleashes the magic of light symbols, and his 5-year-old sister gasps, "It's amazing." He hones his magic solo, and somehow they can splash symbols across the air with light. Giselle takes longer, but the boy leans in and begs her to keep it secret between them, and she nods without hesitation. The magic he's about to learn comes down to one thing, and get this, his dad is into the exact same thing too. If you spot someone wading through war, you call him a sage, but this is the home of Marin's village chief. He swears he's 150 years old, and somehow magic keeps him looking young. Still, when Abel and Giselle see him, fear hits them hard. The man leans in and asks Abel if he wants to learn magic from him. No matter that Abel is a kid, he promises to be strict and drill it into him. It'd be a disaster if everyone found out, but first he needs to figure out just how serious he really is. Firo leans in and tells her everyone's been practicing magic lately, and she can't miss the fact that he's thrilled, because his old skills are finally coming in handy, and yeah, that man's her grandfather. Then he asks if she stood up for him, and when she thanks him back, embarrassment hits her like a wave. She shrieks that she never meant to leave him behind, begs him not to let her grandfather down, and when the boy meets her eyes, pure confusion flashes across his face. That's how his training with the village chief kicked off. He mastered the art of drawing magic circles, and with every lesson his magic surged stronger, just like he'd been dreaming. After reincarnating, he threw himself into every experiment, pushing through nights without sleep, until the one thing he wanted finally landed, and it still left him sick. Now he's stuck trying to study while hiding from his father, because seriously, parents are a pain, and no matter how much time he has, it's never enough. He decides to return the second he's done, chasing knowledge like it's oxygen, because leveling up is straight up a blast. 6 months later, the man leans in and demands Abel show him the results of his training, and Abel grins, nods, and gladly steps up. The protagonist raises the symbol's light, slams out a spell, and the man's jaw drops as he realizes he can command not one, but two totems at once. To master totem control, you've got to trap the magic inside it with magic circles, right from the start. And yeah, controlling totems is the foundation of every spell. He practiced that every single morning before breakfast, still falling short of the sage. The man swears they didn't just follow the command, they're spinning themselves too, and Abel snaps back that he hasn't even started yet. The man's jaw drops as the protagonist whips up a deadly wind swirl between the totems, then fires it straight into the tree, shattering it in an instant. The guy blurts out a terrified apology, and the other man can barely believe it. Those totems straight up dodge the attacks on their own. The protagonist admits he screwed up when he tried to control the power. This time, it wasn't some preloaded move that carried him. No one told him what to do, so he had to figure it out himself, test after test, until it finally clicked and the power obeyed. They ask if he made this magic circle himself, since the master is buried in festival prep, so he hesitates for a bit, then wrestles with it through trial and error and finally nails it. The master sobs through relief, finally believing he can rest in peace, then coughs and declares that Abel has nothing left to learn from him, because he's the first to finish the training. The protagonist and his sister beam with joy, and the master can't stop staring. How on earth can a kid so young pull off a vortex like that, and control his totem with that kind of precision? To him, this boy isn't just talented, he's a real magician. Abel finally spills the truth. He wants to master tougher magic, but can Abel show him the ropes? He asks to grab a book from the library, because those pages are going to teach him more than he ever imagined. At the master's house, the protagonist tells him, "I'll borrow the totems later." Then the master fires back, "How many are you taking?" And he admits he'll need 3 circles to grab them all. He's convinced that every dream he's chased for years, and everything he's ever wanted to do, can finally happen here, in this world which feels like his perfect, ideal home. The protagonist grips a wooden stick in both hands, his magical shortcut for shortening spells, and the key to Abel's legendary drink that slams him with 1,000,000 HP, while he reads whatever's in front of him. Then he grins and tells his 11-year-old sister Giselle that everything's finally ready, and her face lights up with pure joy, while he himself is already 13. Abel shouts that they should go gather info right now, swings his wand toward the farmer and tries to read his status. Hands, magic points 23, strength 34, but the second the numbers flash, the man spots them, and they both bolt for their lives. Abel is left totally baffled. The boy calmly tells them the average magical power of an adult is around 20 points, and Giselle wastes no time. She turns to Abel and demands what kind of magic that even is. Abel tells her he's always craved an RPG-style status screen, and she just stares, baffled, while he remembers being reborn and how he fell in love with the magic in this world. He always chased these abilities, because that's exactly how the main character in the game feels, and then the girl asks to check her status too, so Abel immediately agrees. Her magic hits 37, but her strength is stuck at just 8, yet her magical power still towers over ordinary adults, and if she starts training now, her future could be huge. Meanwhile, he's heard his dad began using magic circles at 20, so maybe he should start way younger. Still, the current Marin clan's magic is weak, and honestly, that's gut-wrenchingly disappointing. Giselle leans in and quizzes Abel about his magic power. He snaps open his status and shows 865 magic points, but even then his strength doesn't stack up to his sister's. She reports that, just like everyone predicted, his magic is way higher after all that training, and even so, he can't shake the feeling that he's still inferior to the master. Then he stares at their statuses, lost in thought. He clocks that the strength gap is 4 times, even though he hardly ever leaves his room, and the girl is stunned by the cute little flower. Abel feels a dread twist in his gut. Then he spots 2 boys eyeing them, and Abel instantly clocks it. They're not staring at him at all, they're locked onto his sister. Then he stares at them and they bolt, screaming like he's the last nightmare in the room, and he's left completely baffled about why. Even back in his old world as a wizard, he barely had any friends, and he never thought it would feel this cruel here too. He still remembers how those boys turned and ran from him. This crushes him. Then boom, someone speaks up, and it's Firo's voice. The girl tells him the rumors are flying. Bellic's son is messing with shady magic, and they want to know exactly what he's planning. Abel is practically glowing with pride. He hasn't talked to anyone outside his family in forever, and he asks her if she wants to check her status, but she snaps at him to stop. Still, Abel just smiles and tells her not to worry. Her magic and strength hit 19 and 20 points. She's the lone descendant of a sage, and her magic level sits right around average for an adult. Her power is 10 times his. If they throw hands, he's done for, and he knows it, so he whips his head toward Firo. If they don't return soon, his father's gonna flip out, so he rushes out an apology. Then she presses him, "Why'd you suddenly get so respectful?" Rage flares in the father's voice as he snaps at his son, "Why are you walking with your sister this late? It's dangerous." And the sister fires back, "I went alone." He tells them, "Yeah, I'm the sage's disciple, but I'm still not over it. He spent all day messing with magic while I did nothing but get stuck with chores." Then his sister snaps back, "Wait, don't you use totems to help out on the field?" What? He's the only one his age who's never hunted, and at this rate he'll never be a proper head of the house, so the main character drops that he's leaving, and he says he'll go. Abel declares he's heading out to hunt, and his father tells everyone his son is coming too. This is his very first hunt. He's thrilled to see his friend, plus Gali and Shibai right there with him. Abel thanks them for taking him in, then his mind snaps back to Artie's family. He's seen them before, but this is the first time he's ever actually spoken to them. He decided to go hunting to whip his body back into shape, and yeah, turns out that wasn't even the whole story. His sister choked up and begged him not to push himself. "Just be careful," he promised. "I'll wait for you." He'll waste no time trying to get back to her, even as he suspects she's starting to develop a full-blown brother complex, though honestly it makes his heart sore that she looks up to him. In the Marin clan, kids hit adulthood at 16, and Giselle's got no friends because she's stuck to him every second. But now that her brother is gone, he's praying she finally makes friends to train her magic, even while he keeps his head down, because no matter what world they're in, he stays emotionally miles away from everyone else. He wants friends his age, so the boy walks up to Shibai and offers his hand, all smiles, until Shibai snaps his head away, clearly not impressed. Gali demands he shake his hand, but the protagonist seethes. He just won't show it. His father slams down the truth that magic is forbidden and pushes him toward archery, and he figures it'll hit hard enough to hunt with. He promises he'll do his best, then wheezes to his father and begs him to go home, only for his dad to snap, "It's only been an hour." Abel can still remember sprinting away from that boar, and the truth hits him hard. He can't rely on brute speed. Magic suits him best, because if he keeps walking around, he'll never grow. Right then, Shibai snaps that he's good for nothing. They spot the parrot acting like the bird's pure gourmet, and she decides, boom, she'll put it down with a bow. Then she orders him to stop staring at her and lock his eyes on the bird. Then she knocks an arrow, fires, hits nothing but her target slips away, and the bird flaps straight toward him. His father spots the miss and reaches for a knife, but Abel clocks something smarter. If that bird's got biotype magic, it could be exactly what he needs. Right as Gali raises his knife to strike the bird, the protagonist snaps in sleep magic, then the bird just drops like a sack. Abel says this trick only works on people who can't resist magic, and then he drops a bombshell, wanting to take her as his pet. Gili can't believe it. He's casting magic with no tool at all. Abel was supposed to skip archery and just toughen up his body, but his dad blew up at him. Then, out of nowhere, something rattled the air with a sudden sound. They think it's an earthquake, then come the crunching footsteps and a brutal boom, so he yells at everyone to sprint at full speed. If they get back, tell the chief, but his son refuses to abandon him here. Suddenly, a massive bear crashes into the scene, smashing trees with brutal paw strikes, and the whole group freezes in pure shock. Yep, this thing is a monster. Then Gali knocks an arrow and fires, only for it to bounce off like it's hitting armor, and Abel instantly realizes his fur is rock hard, so he slips in sleep to knock the bear out. The boy swears his dream worked, then his father comes sprinting in, because the bear hasn't even fallen asleep, and it charges right at them. The father shoves his son back, and the protagonist whips around to face his bleeding dad, then strides up and admits it's his fault, saying he was just too careless. The man tells him he's leaving Giselle and his mom in his care, and the boy suddenly notices a hole ripped open in his stomach, so he's going to gamble everything on restoration magic. His father calls him a smart kid, but then admits that maybe his lessons won't be enough. But somehow he finally managed to step into the role of a real father, because the main character remembers him from a past life. Galley fires flame magic at the bear, but it fizzles out. Then the bear turns the tables, playing with him like he's a toy. Then the protagonist snaps into focus, calls on the symbol's light, and thrusts his hands forward. Boom. Glowing magical patterns erupt in front of him. His fur is so thick it's basically armor, and he's convinced he's never taken a real hit, so if pain even cracks through, he'll go straight for wind blades. He's going to tweak the magic circle. Right now he's flooding every last drop of magic into this attack. The protagonist grins, then launches into a full-power attack on the bear like they own the moment. Abel figures that if he can land even a tiny blow, the bear might finally bolt, and in his head, he begs the bear to give up. He lunges in for the strike, and when it lands, he realizes the hit isn't just a scare anymore. It chops down trees and rips a clear mark into the dirt. He figured he only had to make it flee, but this outcome slams him with a total surprise. Abel suddenly flashes back to his father and panics that he has zero time, so he slides in beside him, still smiling, while the boy stuffs him with meat cut from a bear. He asks if he can take a piece, and the other guy agrees, but you can tell he's terrified about his father. Abel steps in and tells him to calm down. You should wake up soon, saying there are no outside injuries and that the boy has already cast life magic on him. But his father's in rough shape, so the boy hesitates and asks if it's okay to use it, and his father shuts him down, telling him, no, but you'll have to work with it. The protagonist taps the adaptation, and suddenly that bear meat acts just like human flesh, so his father starts writhing. When a human body gets fused with the flesh of a magical creature, you basically get a chimera, so the law calls it a medical procedure, even if some cities slap a ban on it. This is the first time he's ever used biological magic on a human, and the risks are everywhere, but he can't spare a single thought right now. He has to do it. His father is passed out, and the boy lets out a shaky sigh, hoping the medicine won't wreck him with side effects. Later, he'll talk to the master, but right now he just turns his gaze away. He refuses to accept that there are monsters even bigger than this bear, because staying here too long could get him killed, so he whips around and looks at Shibai. Abel is plotting to move their fathers using totems, and if Shibai can trust him, Shibai agrees to help. They finally move, and Shibai blurts out an apology for what happened earlier. Abel waves it off, saying everything's okay, and that if he hadn't been there, he never would have found the strength to do what needed doing, because Abel's help carried him all the way. Shibai blurts out that Abel was nothing to him, just a love rival in his head, and Abel's like, wait, the only girl I know is Furo. Shibai claims Giselle is an unreachable, inaccessible flower, but the Marine clan shares surnames, so he keeps seeing them side by side and jumps to the wrong conclusion, even though they simply walk together when they go out. The main character finally blurts out that he and Giselle are nothing but brother and sister, and it instantly floors Shibai. The boy is stunned that he has to clear up a misunderstanding like this, because honestly, they probably get along a little asterisk too well for brother and sister. Shibai then asks if he can call him brother-in-law, and Abel snaps back in pure rage. Does Shibai really think he can do anything? His sister bursts into happy tears, greeting him like he's a miracle, relief glowing on her face as she crushes him in a tight hug, and he can only think with a warm shake in his chest that this is what pure family love feels like. Abel flashes a gentle smile and apologizes, but the girl starts crying, then stares her brother straight in the eyes for keeping her waiting. He tells himself, don't touch what you're not used to, because the truth is, he'd rather explore magic at home than anywhere else. 2 years have exploded since that incident, and now Abel strolls down the steps with a grin because he's already 15. He's convinced he's already been stuck in this world for 15 years, and that it'll still take 2 more years before he catches up to the age he reached in his past life. The protagonist tilts his head to the sky, burning with curiosity about what his friend is up to at the Black Magic Research Club. He's convinced Yai is still drowning in guilt after that night when he saved her and paid with his own life, so he's hoping she can finally let it go because he's living his second chance like it's a gift. And honestly, today was a damn perfect day. Mont, a 13-year-old Giselle, spins to her older brother and blurts that she has finally found him. Then the boy greets her right back. The main character stares at a pole, and just a short while ago, he'd been knee-deep in a landscaping job. Giselle tells him his size exploded thanks to the magical additives. At first, the totem barely seemed to move, but Abel brags that of course it would go like that. Then Giselle turns to him and demands to know why he's doing all of this. The protagonist craves those leaves blooming right on his hand for his coming-of-age ceremony. Then he dreams of smoking the ones he grew himself, but Giselle laughs and tells him there are plenty waiting at home. He just can't imagine getting used to the taste, since his father warned him to toughen up and learn it. He learned the flavor changes based on how they're grown, so he decided to grow them himself, and the girl smiled, saying she just hopes he'll be able to harvest tasty leaves. He tells the totem it's time for his snack, and Giselle blurts, "Why are you talking to it like that?" He figures it's the thin, tall look that sparked the memory, Mr. Gora, the one who helped him build the Black Magic Research Club. This guy built a spot at school just for himself, naming it something he'll hold on to for life, and she drags her crying brother into the truth, what happened, and he tells her a grain of sand flew into his eye. Out of nowhere, someone shows up and drops a bombshell. Turns out the rumors are real. He's a recluse who knows nothing about the outside world. "You never heard of the great Naswell?" they ask, Karoko. The protagonist grits his teeth and thinks, this hurts, and keeping up these conversations is way too much trouble. The boy caught wind that the headman's apprentice was growing a totem, so he showed up in person just to see if he could give him pointers, and Abel told him it was incredibly kind of him to come help. Maybe the rumors are real. If he starts growing leaves, they'll shut him down, and people are going to start bombarding him with, "Why do you even do this?" The Marin clan can't use regular money, so in a village where people trade everything by hand, leaves became the go-to currency, while the house cargo basically hogs the leaf harvest. Chinese letter 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 Chinese letter. With a crooked grin, he says this could rake in even more profit for them, bigger than ever. He whips around to Giselle and declares, "You'll be my wife," and Abel practically explodes with disbelief. "Tell me you're joking." Friends tell Naswell to stop. He's joking, right? Because if they really piss off Abel, they're dead meat and they should apologize fast. But Naswell snaps, "Shut up," and insists through sheer confidence that he's the strongest. When Naswell gets hit with the rumor, if he lands on the blacklist, they'll turn him into a chimera or a totem. The protagonist practically freezes. Stunned, someone would even say that about him. He snaps at them, roaring that they're right. Then he turns the tables and claims the totems in his house can actually talk, and people have even told stories about how he slayed a mighty bear with magic. Noseful snaps, demanding everyone stop tossing exaggerated rumors around, because he can take down the great bear all by himself, no problem. The main character is convinced his magic is insanely powerful, so he figures he's the only one who even cares about magic, yet he's got a whole mountain of things he can't wait to tell you about. Noseville snaps, furious, telling Giselle to get out from behind his back, because he's the heir of the Karoko family. He finally spots someone just like him, someone who actually wants to be polite, and he whips around to face Nazwilu. Abel blurts out that his sister is shy, so talking is the way. Then his family's growing leaves, meaning he's supposed to be a totem pro, and while he's busy crafting a magic circle, he's also getting hooked on Hibis's theory, grilling him about what paints he uses. Nosfeld's rage erupts. He swings in to attack the protagonist, and just like that, he slams him down to the ground. Giselle shoots Abel a worried look and asks if he's hurting anywhere. Then he spits out, "There's sand in my mouth." Nazgul's eyes narrow as the rumors crumble, and he snaps to Abel that he's not cultivating his totem the right way. He claims he's stuck to proven research, and Naswell fires back that the Karako family will never fall for that mistake. Nosful whips up a wind blade and slashes the protagonist's totem straight down the middle, and rage twists across his face. After he starts laughing and his friends scatter, claiming they were only escorts, Noswell demands that next time they drop him somewhere way more suitable. Out of nowhere, the main character's mood crashed into darkness, and his sister swung toward him like, "Hey," but he's got to find the courage to say what's on his mind. He realizes that if this is how it's going down, he'll do it carefully in the eastern forest, until the boy calls him downright mean. Suddenly, he snapped for him to start carving the totem, because he wasn't trying to trap Giselle here, he just told him to begin the work. He snaps, "Are you really trying to trap me here?" Then fires off, "Why would you even wreck Karoko's house?" And he answers with full conviction, "Avenging the mountain should pay off for the whole clan." Why does he think those leaves are worth everything, just because growing them is a nightmare, all thanks to that house? Carlo controls exactly how many hit the market, and if he can lock down the magical reserve, selling them won't be hard at all. The leader lets magic get traded for the village's currency because it makes everyday life better, but the leaves vanish the moment you use them. so if their value falls, Karoko's home is about to be in deep trouble. That's how a brutal feud sparks between the village head and the Karako house. Only the Karakos wield serious power, so the head can't touch them. He's heard they're at odds, but he never knew it all started for this exact reason. That's why he plots to smash the Karako house's political power, mass-producing top-tier leaves, so the head won't even feel the hit. And that's how he'll drive the value of Karoko's leaves into the ground, picturing the scales tipping in his mind. He gets asked how they're gonna pull it off, because if they succeed, Jaisel's tied to the Karoko house forever through marriage. According to the plan, Nosful really has feelings for her, because once the war ends, one of them will be left behind, and it's almost poetic, but when the boy hears that, it's unforgivable to him, and he demands they try anyway. He promises he'll smash as many totems as he can, and he's sure they'll do it. He also begs them not to call him brother-in-law. 3 days are already gone. Nospel peers through a pipe like he's hunting for answers, while the men nearby whisper in terrified voices, how they already knew he'd been fuming to the point of breaking, even before the entrance totems went up. Wait, this is the exact totem Noswell chopped down back then, right? He exhales, realizes he's about to strike with those totems, and then he erupts into wild laughter. He demands, "Are you really that stupid?" And they answer with a dumb, hollow truth, they're just scarecrows. Inside, those scarecrows are basically leaf collectors, and the ones you're seeing won't attack anyone at all when you look back. The real twist, he's actually trying to grow leaves. But it's useless to pull off something that massive. You'd need 20 people, each packed with serious magical power, because even if the totem maniac gives it everything, the totems are still doomed to fail at best. They beg him not to brush him off, not when his magic power roars so strong, even the head admits it. Nosfell snaps back that he's nothing but an old man who's simply lived in this world longer than most, but deep down, he's sure this could be some kind of secret setup between the teacher and the student. He barks orders for the boys to keep watch on the headman's house and block anyone from asking him for magical help. Then they nod, sprint off, and vanish into the night. Nasfel totally misread Abel. 2 years back, he crushed the king of the forest, the great bear, and now he can effortlessly keep about 50 growing totems fed with a steady, non-stop stream of magical power. That's how the main character grabbed an easy win, and just 2 weeks later, they were grinning like they'd won it all. The boy blurts out that Abel is incredible, and for a second he wonders if he can actually carry that weight. Then he realizes they really did raise him for this, and even though he can't shake that bad feeling, he still expects Nazval to step in. He tells them, "It's thanks to you that I can reach Mountain 2 and 3, now it's time to go collect the leaves." At the head's place, the guys were whispering about something freaky, right here day after day, but the head and Abel never showed up or stepped outside. Nosful storms out in anger, demanding what's happening in the Belikov house since his sister just left. Then he realizes Abel isn't there, and the dread hits. Did Abel swallow his pride, admit defeat, and walk away? Furel and the dog snap at them in pure rage, yelling, "What are you doing here?" Nosful grins and says they're only here to search for Abel. The girl snaps in shock and blurts out that Abel hasn't shown up in ages. Then the dog starts snarling at the guys, so they immediately apologize. Noswell snarls that the dog is stupid, but if she's telling the truth, it looks like Abel never teamed up with the chief at all, because every last totem in his field is only fit for firewood, and when he realizes it, he drops his hands in crushing despair. Nosful snaps that nobody can outgrow Domo Kuroko's leaves, and Fyro can't stop thinking about the eldest son, Kuroko, lurking near his house, so what exactly is he up to? She's sensing something seriously wrong, yet the truth is, the coming-of-age ceremony is right around the corner, and somehow that has nothing to do with what's really going on. Meanwhile, inside Balex's house, a guy S got his cigarette going, and he's raving that the leaves look absolutely magnificent today. He swears this isn't anything like what he's been smoking, and just around the corner, Abel's grinning, happy as can be. Everything's ready, the battlefield is the market, and it opens the very same day as his coming-of-age ceremony, because he just declared it. The war is starting. The exhausted protagonist groans that he's wiped out and that these clothes feel like weights from hell. Then he begs Giselle to help him get undressed. Garcia chirps that they've done a great job, saying he and Giselle look like brand new newlyweds, and that hits both of them like a punchline. They press him for when the wedding is. The boy answers dead serious. The man snaps and asks where his son vanished to. Abel tells him, "Go on, head to the market." He stares at the leaves, says he always knew something was buried there, and then hits the real question. If he's gone this far, what about those samples? He even nods and agrees to try to be the first customer. He gives it a shot and lights up like it's amazing. Because of his own face, Abel fully expected it to taste awful, but it doesn't, and just as he's processing that, Abel can't handle smoke well, so Sheba swoops in out of nowhere and goes straight to him. He blurts out an apology and admits he thought he'd found the perfect empty spot, so he dove in and started setting everything up. By the time he snapped to it, they were already somewhere else. Someone was yelling that this was the best spot they could drag them to. The protagonist grins and declares it turned out amazing, then immediately snaps, now we've got to sell it before we're left with nothing. He tells everyone to clear this place out, because people are terrified to get in the Karolko family's way. Even if hawking the same kind of goods keeps lining their pockets, they've got to do it anyway, and the moment the kid realizes he can't dodge consequences, his whole world snaps with shock. The protagonist snaps at him to calm down, but everyone here is dying to tear things apart, because if they swap in Kuroko during the break, they'll steal the win, and even then, he still won't back down. 10 minutes pass. They're stunned nobody's coming near this place, and Abel's like, Giselle, can you grab the totems I made yesterday, red and blue? Shiva lanes in and demands what he's using that totem for, his little secret weapon he cooked up. Noswell strides up to them and with a slick grin, tells them they think they're about to pull off mass production. Later he'll finally learn who came to help him, but it turns out that help was totally useless. Nospel tells everyone his family grows leaves with top-tier techniques and age-old traditions, and swears those branded products hit a whole different league. He demands to know whether they really call it a tradition to pump dark magic into their totems, and then slams them for selling trash goods, saying if they cover up the taste, it's nothing but a cheap trick. He hears that with 1 copper medal you can cover 5 packs, so he scoots over, stomps it flat with his foot, and then bursts into laughter. He rallies everyone and demands, if you buy from us, do you even realize what's coming for you after that? Rage surges through the main character's chest, then his sister steps in and hands him totems, and he just blurts out that it's awesome. Shiba asks what it is and the red totem starts glowing, straight up enchanting them for sales, while the blue one pulls customers in because their customers are sick of waiting in line. He's totally confident in their taste and somehow there are only half as many of them, yet if they can pull in clients, they could flip everything on its head. The main character even says straight up it isn't some magical technique. He flipped open the book expecting nothing, then boom, there it was, a beckoning cat, some protective charm, and when he tried to use it, the magic circle did absolutely nothing, but that failure only proved this kind of magic could still be huge. So Shiva snaps, is it adorable for you? And the girl shoots back that he's not just fine, he's actively hurting him. Shiba's father steps in and asks to buy extra, and she tells how she shared the test product with everyone. Every single person loved it and begged him to sell more. The main hero finally gets it. This stuff is on another level, like everything he smoked before was straight up mold. They can't handle anything but his leaves, and honestly, they're solid and dirt cheap. They stare in shock at the amazing leaves and that crazy price, so one guy even grabs 50 packs, and suddenly, crowds start piling in around them. Noseville fires the question, do you all know who you're going up against? And the crowd immediately scrambles to sell them the leaves. They buy in the hundreds because suddenly they're told to line up in 2 perfect rows. Firo steps in, asking if she can do anything to help, and he makes sure to tell her, keep those lines straight and organized. His friends push him to slash the prices or they'll face trouble. Then he snaps back that he can't, because Dad ordered him to keep the price exactly the same. Somebody jumps the line and Abel snaps at him to get in order. Then the guy says he's doing a great job, praising him up and down for all that good work. At the head of the Karolko family, Norman Karolko drops the bombshell. He is Naswell. Rage crackling in his voice, he demands who he is because did you leave it in the store? Abel calmly snaps back, I can handle it, and points to where his son is standing nearby. They press him hard, are you the totem maniac from the Bellic family? And the main character hesitates for a beat, then the man bursts into sudden laughter. Nosville snaps at him to get it together, then right in front of everyone, his father crumples to the ground, and Nosville blurts out that his father is fragile, so how in the world is he supposed to pay for what he just did? Out of nowhere, he lunges at the main character and snarls that he'll kill him, so the boy yells for everyone to back up and move away. Everyone's like, sweet, so the Carlo boss is with that fool's kid, and the girl blurts out, should we stop them? Abel better rein it in right now, because if he doesn't, everything's gonna go sideways. He's desperate to make his actions true self-defense, so he can't swing first. Abel knows letting his guard down spells disaster, and Noswell just smirks like, go ahead, I'm strong and I've got the talent to prove it. Abel can't stop staring at the magic circle hanging above him, no matter how you try to explain it. Of course it's a fake, Norman's a legit battle-tested magician, but his son, total clueless fool who knows nothing at all. That magic tool doesn't just sit there, it boosts your magic power, and Nosval channels it into a fiery sphere. Then he roars and hurls the spear straight at the guy, and right as it flies, the main character blasts him back with earth magic. The main character hammers a totem into the ground right in front of a taller guy, and the next thing you know the guy crumples to the floor, pure fear taking over. Then he snaps and starts screaming while the man stays cool, insisting he's not holding back. The main character reels from what happened to Nosful and decides, let him attack. Abel can't stop doubting whether he still wants to break his guard, so he unleashes a desperate scream, begging to be saved, and the main character is left reeling in shock. 10 days later, the incense story blew through the whole village, prices crashed, Calco leaves and Calco itself dropped like stones, and the people who'd been trapped and exploited by the Calco family finally walked free. They've been getting paid for nothing up to now, and it's straight up unfair. Abel just wants things to finally run right. So he asks Nosval if he's going hunting, but Nosval bolts and runs the other way instantly. Abel handed the field management plan to the chief, grinning like he already owned the whole operation. He's made a fortune selling frankincense leaves. To kick off this whole enterprise, the protagonist dove headfirst into research. He sinks into the cart and mutters that if they push just a little farther, everything will be fine. Then the Emict can't handle the magical power needed for long hauls, and right on cue the cart jerks to a stop halfway, screaming that it needs an upgrade. That cargo totem is only the first move toward growing the farm. He'd rather swap gears and reconfigure it, and he tells Giselle to go take a stroll since she's bored, but she shrugs and says she actually likes just watching. He asks if she could hang out with her friends sometimes, and she smiles back. If she's got him, she's totally happy. Giselle is 14 now, still the same as always, and she'll hang out with someone who isn't family whenever she wants because she's been spending time with him for ages. If this keeps going, trouble's coming, so he tells her to talk to his father, and his father fires back, asking if she means incense. The father grins because he's finally struck gold, but he's praying he won't end up like some other rotten family for Karoko. Yeah, he knows exactly this is really about Giselle. The father gets it. When he grows up, he'll finally want to talk. She'll hit adulthood in 2 years. Then the man suddenly asks if he wants to perform the ceremony. He launches into the story of his wedding with Giselle, begs for them to be treated as brother and sister, but their father just stands there, utterly baffled. When a brother hits adulthood, the clan usually pairs him up by marrying off his siblings, and if the gap is under 5 years, he's supposed to know about it. He leans in and asks his son if he wants it, but it already reeks of a mix-up, like everyone's acting weird on purpose. So when the talk finally spirals into this, he blurts out the real reason behind his thinking. All these years, he believed marriage was nothing less than uniting different families. The father straight up admits he even married his younger sister, and the guy fires back, saying it's not normal to marry relatives. Father says he thought he was crazy about Giselle for years, but it was really brotherly love all along. Now he insists he's an adult, and he wants her wedding to be the moment he finally grows up. By morning, the main character can't stop thinking about this village and his dad, because he's convinced they're about to start prepping for his wedding for real. He had to dodge all of that because all he cared about was magic, so he brushed off how this world really worked, and through it all, Giselle stayed right beside him, close enough to feel, though he never caught on and maybe she hadn't either. Knowing Giselle was his sister, nobody dared force her to marry him, so he probably just did it out of pure spite. She already knew how cold his motives were. And when he tried to inch closer, she didn't even spare him a single glance. Brothers and sisters should never marry, and he's convinced she'll never want her own brother, because they'll plot, push everyone into surrender, and then the girl just says good morning to him, and boom, fear hits him hard. She clocks that he hasn't slept a wink, snatches control and bans him from working all night, then grins, because when his body finally shuts down, she wants to be the first one to ride him, and when he finishes, she's over the moon happy. Now he's stuck with longer work hours, and the main character finally says he needs to talk to her about something that's going to leave her shocked for sure. People are buzzing about them getting married, and honestly nobody expected it. He heard the rumor for the first time at night, and the girl was already smiling, saying she was incredibly happy. His coming-of-age ceremony just happened, so she figured there'd be no wedding anytime soon, but he talked his father into it, and now they're getting married so fast she can hardly breathe. She's over the moon happy. 10 years ago, her mother dropped this bombshell into her life, and since that day, it's haunted her dreams. Someday she'll marry her brother, and she'll finally get to call herself his wife. She decided she'd wait as long as it took. Then boom, the day her heart was ready finally arrived, and the protagonist was completely thrown. He has to dive into the chapter today because the test run isn't ready yet. It needs tweaking first, and she's not about to let him go alone. The protagonist cuts them off. Nope, we're talking about Ladon again next time. The girl trudges back home and finds her parents already deep in wedding talk, 3 days left, and Giselle can't help but beam because the countdown is finally almost over. The mom insists Abel isn't buying into it, but the dad shrugs like it's nothing. He'll take it either way, and the second the ceremony ends, he'll finally cool off. The protagonist strides up to the chief and blurts out that he only came to talk. He wanted to consult him about the fields. Abel blurts out that he wants to be alone and think, and the awkward guy nods fast like, sure, yeah, just a sec, while he sits by himself in the library. He never bothered to learn the customs of this world, because he already clung to the rules and values of his homeland, and honestly, he's the only one with such wild beliefs. In this world, the dead don't stay gone, they turn into spirits, and those spirits get reborn, so everyone truly believes in it. And he shuts that belief down fast, because he still remembers his past life like it just happened, and he's not sure how anyone else will see it. So he kept it to himself and chose to stay here, but the whole mess happened because he was falling behind in a dozen ways. If he had just agreed, would everything have worked out? He's not just anxious, he's laser-focused on Giselle, because that shut-in magical nerd has been taught her whole life that marrying her brother is normal, and the whole thought won't let him breathe. Then one of the totems yanks the map right off the table, and the main character snatches it open. Bam, it's a map of the village and everything around it. They had something like this here. He decides to bail on the village, because if he vanishes, they'll fold and Giselle will be forced to talk to everyone else. So he starts prepping for the escape, and when he faces the leader, he makes one demand. He's taking the books and the totems. The leader demands he hand everything back, but he refuses and says he'll return them on his own time. Right after that, he tells Firo he's rushing, and she cheers him on like it's wedding day. He demands to know how she knew he'd spotted his father roaming around, blabbing to everyone, and the boy finally gets it. His father had baited him straight into a trap. He says he has to go, then drops the bomb that he's been talking to himself the whole time, thanks her for taking care of him, and finally shakes her hand. She's reeling in shock, begging him, don't talk like it's the end, like we'll never see each other again, and he fires back, I'm back. Abel blasts out that he's going deeper into his research, so don't let time slow him down, and his father leans in as Abel confirms that frankincense leaves are tied to it too. Father snaps that if he's going to disappear in that room, he'll still keep prepping for the ceremony, no stopping now. Giselle offers to bring him food, but he's already eaten with the headman and now he's been handed a delicate job with a hard deadline, so he's rushing out the door. She begs him not to keel over from exhaustion since his body is so fragile, and he quickly blurts out, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to trouble you. At night, he scribbles a letter, he's gone, and he won't come back until he figures out whether Giselle has married, or until he takes a bride of his own. He lifts the wand right at himself, mutters, hide me, and suddenly, boom, he disappears from everyone's sight. Years ago, he'd always bolt like this. Now he's doing it for the final time, because this is the last ride he'll ever take into the totem minecart and fire it off. He can't stop thinking, will they let him back in? The Marin clan isn't allowed to leave their village at all, unless the chief personally gives permission. He has no idea what happens to rule breakers, but if he's barred from coming back, then Giselle will obviously start a family, and he wants to watch over her from a distance. Then the tears hit. The boy jolts awake and stares around, baffled. Where in the world is he? At this pace, he should have already slammed into the lake. Then the city of Lamern hits him, a non-stop blur of trade that drags in crowds, and the stronger the commerce, the faster the rumors and foreign goods pour in. The main character gushes that a big city is amazing, and then, boom, the totem starts smoking, leaving Abel completely baffled. His father is stunned, he bolted without a single letter. The girl shrugs and says maybe he didn't vanish, he went to test the totem first, planning to come back. If he's not back before sunset, we're dragging the chief into it and sending out a search crew, because she's dead sure nothing's wrong and everything's going to turn out fine. The girl hides his note behind her back and clutches it tight as she swears she believes in him. Then Abel stands beside the wrecked totem, staring it down. He's not fully convinced he swapped the ore with Lita, but then there are Emektivea's fingerprints, clear traces of a forced replacement, so who else could have done it? He remembers that all he really said to Giselle was about the ore problem, and that she warned him, don't drop halfway from exhaustion. To reach Lamern from here before he comes back, he'd be sprinting straight toward death. This is the farthest distance his body can survive. If Giselle caught his escape attempt, why on earth did she chase him that winding way? Couldn't she just shut it down with a simpler move? He gets it if they push him to crack the rule. The ones who break it won't get an easy second chance to slip away. If he didn't turn back, he'd lock himself out of his only shot to leave the village again, and the thought of being dragged into marriage made his stomach twist, because this place had nothing left for him to learn, and just farther down the road, something waited that he didn't understand yet. Should he really let his amazing life die out in this tiny village? Because the second he starts crying, he hears someone nearby. A girl in a cart is yelling at him about what happened. while he can't even focus because his stomach hurts. Right behind her, a dark-haired guy. He leans in and asks where they're headed, and the guy says, Lamarn. Joy hits the main character like lightning. He got permission to enter Aitlet, and now he's finally gone, never coming back to the village. They quiz him about his eyes and hair, ask if he's from the Marin clan and why he's here, and when he confesses he never got along with them, he admits he bolted from home. Then the girl drops the bombshell that she's just like Maya. James rolled into Maya's village to trade, and every time her tears started, he'd pull her along. Turns out they only met a week ago, and now Maya swears they've both been wondering the same thing. Whether their hearts are pushing back against customs they've never known. Maya comes from the Duum clan, and the wild part is, she has no magic crystal on her forehead, which is a huge problem. She's got those clear signature features, horns, and a crystal sitting on her forehead, and everyone thinks it split off from an accident back when her mother was pregnant, like she took a tumble, and that's where it all began. He asks, can it even get hurt? And they tell him, yeah, it can, like bark gets torn, but once it breaks off, it won't grow back, so nobody dares remove it. Maya didn't have one, so everyone looked at her like she was trash. If they were strangers, it wouldn't sting like this, but her mom despised her too, and that guy finally gets it. She's been through hell. She claims she's leaving and flashes the bag, showing off her mother's savings, those funds that don't even begin to make up for what she did. She beams and says she'll travel the whole world with James from now on. He nods and agrees, right when they spot the magical beasts of Garm. They're trying to figure out why they're chasing them right this second, because the Garms are acting like vicious hounds, tracking every step. Magical beasts are born when the same kind of magic power simmers in the right conditions, and then bam, they pop into existence out of nowhere, with no telling where or when they'll show up. The chief told him straight up that if he spotted any animal tagged D or worse, he had to report it, and around the village the only big things he kept seeing were those huge bears, so Maya shoved the boy to hit the gas and drive faster. Loops is holed up at his house while James begs them to ignore him, because they've got to vanish from them fast. James orders them to toss every piece of luggage, and if luck's on their side, something will snap their attention away. He asks Abel if he can use magic, and Abel jumps in with a yes. Then he wants it to scare them off, because if they're not destroyed, they'll wreck the next group of travelers. Then he snaps the wand toward the Garms, and they rocket straight up into the air like a roaring column. That giant totem is still standing, so the guy turns to his crew and asks, is this enough? James gets it instantly. Those Marin clan folks are straight up insane. That night they camped in the forest, fishing their hearts out. Then they finally pushed forward again, and James swears they can now see the city. That massive city ahead is Lamarn, and a little later, they cross the line and enter its territory. The girl demands to know why they have to split up, the exact question James wished he'd said earlier, so Abel explains it plain. One of them might end up being the merchant's key to everything. The protagonist shoots them a grateful look, and you can tell that without Abel, James would have been in serious trouble. The girl thrusts a bag into his hands and says that these jewels will let her buy up all of James's wheat so he won't have to lift a finger. Then Abel fires back. What's she planning to do once she's piled that much up? Maya glares at Abel and asks if he'll really ditch her, and Abel admits he hasn't planned anything yet, so Maya points out he still hasn't taught her the new totem engraving methods she's dying to learn, then begs him to tell her about magical things. She tells him, from now on you're my person, and he nods without hesitation. Then she promises, anything you want, I'll get it, but he leans in and says, just save my savings. The main character strolls the city with the girl, scanning everything as he narrates, just like he expected. The place is totally unlike the village. Suddenly his eyes lock on a shop stacked with magic and alchemy gear, Chimera's Tale, where a girl in a hat grins at a customer and declares, you've got excellent taste, and everyone else just walks past because she's had that item for ages, but he's the only one who can't stop staring. Maya finally spots it. It's not the world tree, just a branch of it, but the tree near the heart of this giant forest oozes magic, while monsters swarm the area like they own it. 5 years back, a squad stormed into the forest to wipe out the beasts, and when the dust settled, only one man was still standing. He'd lost his gear, snapped a killer illusion to turn the beasts away, and fled almost naked, then sold the branch for a fortune, even though it carries a heartbreaking past. Abel is blown away, stunned by the way her magical energy surges. Barrier or not, it's still bursting out like it's alive. Then he thinks, if she made a totem, it would be incredible. And the moment the girl hears that, she realizes magical tools like that exist back in his homeland. She flashes the bottle and demands, what about this? Because just moments ago, animals tore into them, and in the middle of the monster panic, they got ambushed by a swarm of unicorns, leaving the main character completely stunned. She tells him, you want something perfect, use blood as paint. If you've got the world tree's branches and blood, you could pull off something nobody's ever imagined, and she offers it to him for $2,100,000. In the kingdom of Dinlart, right where Lamern lives, keeping medicinal herbs is flat out forbidden, so every single leaf he brought is useless the moment it hits the ground. Abel claims that if he had real money, he'd be at home raking it in, and then the girl drops a bag of cash on the table, asking if it's finally enough. The protagonist tells the girl to wait, but she shuts him down. If he's serious about buying it, then she'll buy it for him, and he can't shake the shock of it. At last, the merchant spots a buyer for her branch. He agrees, she slashes the price, and Maya practically explodes with joy. But then the man fires back, so what do you get out of this? She shrugs, says it's no big deal, and still warns him she doubts he'll ever stumble across stuff like the world tree that easily. After a while, the main character can't believe what he's seeing. The girl sprawls down and sinks into that soft, fluffy futon like it's made just for her. The protagonist sits in silence, replaying how he'd even offered to cover their food costs, only for the merchant to shut him down, saying she wouldn't know until she saw the finished work, and betting that if they could make the branch better, she'd pay top dollar. Abel knows it's just an investment. The girl tells him to watch her in bed for the first time, because he's going to craft a masterpiece, pay her back, and rake in a fortune that'll crown him the best totem in the world. The main character grinned like he just solved everything, knowing he has to repay Maya, because she's already passed out, and Abel's busy carving a totem in the quiet dark. After a while, he bursts in to say it's all set, ready to move, perfected to the max, a real masterpiece. And if he can learn to control it, he'll be able to pull off almost anything he wants. Suddenly, Abel tenses up, something off, but he can't even tell what it is. Maybe it's just the no-sleep all-night haze, so he reaches for a potion. Maya shoots up and stares forward, totally lost and stunned. The girl jolts in terror and shrieks Abel's name, and the protagonist's mind races. What in the world is that slackdaw doing near his house? Then it hits him. His truck died halfway to Lamern, and he realizes he's been tied up the whole time. Then the door swings open, and Giselle strides in. She leans in and asks if he's awake yet. The girl whips out an apology, saying she had to keep him here and tie him down so he wouldn't pull another reckless stunt again. Then she peels the bandage off his mouth, begs him never to do it again, and Abel coughs. She realizes she's mixing up his escape in the truck with those experiments, so he's convinced it can't be possible. He shoved a letter into the world, and Giselle immediately got to work. She could even reshape that truck's structure. Then she leans in and asks if he's hungry, telling him to eat. After that, she cooks it herself with the Marin clan, because in their custom, the wife is the one who makes the food. The protagonist snaps to the truth. If he swallows it, there's no undoing what comes next, so he whips around to his sister and blurts out an apology for bolting, because at that moment, nothing else even crosses his mind. His thoughts run completely off the usual Marin clan track, and honestly, it's wild to even believe why, because in his head, he's already decided that one day he'll finally tell her the truth. She nods like she gets it, but then she still pleads with him, at least sip some water for his own sake. The protagonist downs a drink, and Giselle leans in to confirm she got him right, because he's not missing the plot, he's just totally blindsided by what's happening. The girl gasps out an apology, then drives a knife into his leg, and he erupts into loud screams as she seals him up with something strange, while Abel reels in non-stop agony. The protagonist realizes his tongue won't move at all, like something locked it in place. Did that water do this to him? The girl insists everything's fine, but then she tells him the brutal truth: he won't be able to walk anymore. She'll always be there, ready to take care of him, and that's what makes him freeze in horror, because if this keeps going, he's going to lose his leg for real, so he starts praying for some kind of magic to stop it. Maya blurts the main character's name, and he snaps his eyes open, like he finally fought his way back to his senses. And whoa, do magicians really sleep and just cast spells? He's absolutely stunned when he looks up and sees magic circles hovering right in front of him. He's totally stunned, he can't believe it. Because he made it, this magic circle feels unstoppable, yet the scary part is that it's even theoretically destroyable. His own gift scares the hell out of him while the girl trembles in fear, so he tries to tear it out first. He rips away the circle, then blurts out an apology. He says he only dreamed of a terrifying figure, made it without even realizing, and it was so dangerous it nearly wrecked the whole region. She stares at him and asks what kind of dream he really had. Abel gets it, he's not forgetting, he's refusing to remember, and the girl watches his fever finally break. He blurts out, "How long was I out?" and she tells him, "A day and a half." The fact he didn't wake up has panic clawing at her, and he finally leans in, grateful, thanking her for keeping an eye on him. She asks if she was helpful, and Abel flashes a firm yes, because he needs to show his gratitude. Then he points out that once he sells the totem, the cash will hit his hands right away, and it'll be a huge amount. He looks down and realizes he's clutching a totem, then breaks into tears, whispering how incredible it is. The girl begs him not to sell it, and he insists it's all okay, because the branch of the world tree in his hands is exactly the one Maya gave to Abel. She even shells out the cash for food, and there's this adventurer's aid center where you can trade in materials from magical beasts. Abel's got the strength to turn those sales into real money. So is an organization like that even possible? Now he finally gets it. This city isn't just surviving the beasts, it's fighting back and keeping everyone safe. The protagonist grins and pitches, let's hit it tomorrow. Right after Abel climbs into James' wagon to ride out to Lamorn, the village chief orders a search party, and they track down Abel's truck. So once the clan reads the location from the writing Abel left on it, they hit pause on the whole search. Giselle braced herself for him to come back, but no matter how hard she tried, he never returned, so now she spends her days trapped, shrinking deeper into herself with every passing hour. Her parents stare at their daughter and assume she's living in poverty, but the truth is darker. She's so swallowed by depression that all she can think about is Abel. The girl cradled the totem in her hands and demanded to know why he never came back. Then she snapped the moment with a knife and drove it straight into the thing. She can't stop wondering if she's gone insane, until her father stares at her in shock. The shadow outside the window finally realizes what he's done, and now he has to bring that man in so he can get moving again. Abel ends up at the Adventure Help Center, and the question hits him, can Maya use magic for something beyond the usual? She says they're talking about power that's perfect for battling magical beasts. She tried to cast magic, but the people around her hated it, like asking about her clan was a one-way ticket to trouble, so she stayed quiet. Now he turns to the girl they found in the depths and asks, all right, tell me what your organization actually does. What? The girl fires off a question, why did you register under that name, Mountain? And he just blurts it out, like he knew trouble was coming, admitting he did it on instinct, not even thinking. All you have to do is show a card that proves who you are, and then the organization steps in, orchestrating the adventurer's every move. They run it like a ladder. Your rank climbs as you rack up worthy deeds. Rise high enough and you unlock real privileges, or even earn a job working for the royal family. Abel's convinced his benefactor is called Mountain, until he remembers how he saved his life when magical beasts stormed in and nearly tore everything apart. The girl can't believe creatures like that even exist, let alone that they're brave enough to attack. And if Abel hadn't shown up, Abel would have been dead on the spot, because he slammed the beasts into ashes and then stitched him back up until he healed completely. The guy grins and says he's talking about some old online game from the past world, and the girl's eyes go wide in shock. After they register, they've got to map out exactly where to hunt next, and the girl tells them to wait. Then the man admits he's been mulling it over for a while. Since he and Mason don't quite see eye to eye, he straight up apologizes. He tells her to drop the fight and switch the topic. If Tiad leaves, the girl beside him will vanish with her too. She's been loving him for ages, so maybe she should just take him and let him go. Stunned, the guy blurts that he loves them both too. Then they stroll off hand in hand, and Maya watches them go, secretly praying they'll finally be happy. Abel warns them not to step in, and then the guy stands up and tells them to talk, asking if they've actually figured out where to hunt. He's desperate for real comrades since he's the leader, and yeah, he just booted the extra dead weight. Abel shrugs and says everyone's doing just fine. He's telling them, join me and I'll pay for every trip. Then I've got intel on an insane hunting spot you'll love. They're bouncing along in a cart when they ask the boy where his massive hunting grounds are, and he fires back, wondering if hunting in the forest would hit harder. He explains that the barriers have been cleared, so the beast slips into the ruins, and that's when they start tearing through the rubble to find it. Abel squints at what he's found and blurts out a question about treasure, though it smells way more like that magical stone that powered the barriers guarding the ruins, the kind worth a fortune, especially once they step into the lair and go hunting through hordes of magical beasts. So yeah, she's got nothing to worry about at all. Abel's an adventurer right on the edge of E-rank, and he's the guy the girl means when she talks about the group, so when she picks him, Abel just gets the job done because he's the type who pays for everything. He stares at the ruins right ahead and snaps into action, ripping into the research group. Just because some lord backs him doesn't give him the right to strut like he owns the world, and then all three of them huddle around the fire. The girl insists they were stone-cold determined. Two guys shut them down, ripped their entry rights away, and ordered them to get out of there. The protagonist blurts out, that's it, this is why the info hasn't made it to the aid center yet. Then he points at the lord, the kind who can hide his treasures forever, and insists he'll never hand them over to anyone. They've already traveled this far, so now they've got no choice but to wait until the sun rises, because if they can spot the ruins from a distance, he'll finally be satisfied. Shaken to the core, the guy blurts out, asking if they're ready to surrender, and Abel snaps back that there's no way in, not while the soldiers keep the ruins sealed up tight, because adventurers and trouble always come hand in hand, and if they can just wait with insane patience, the way will open for them. The girl yells that she just heard a roar, and the protagonist's mind instantly screams, "Magical beast," while the boy sits there, already trembling with nerves. Then the protagonist decides to prove what a real swordsman can do, even with his rank. Suddenly, a low-rank magical beast dares them to attack. The protagonist urges everyone to stay calm, and he shuts down any idea of revealing their position. A monstrous creature with massive claws tears out of the forest skies, and panic hits everyone at once. The guy barrels into a fight with the beast, slashes its hand, and laughs like it's easy as pie, and the main character and Maya are left staring, totally shocked. The beast rages as it growls, and then, boom, more monsters just like it spill into the scene, all shocked by what they've found. Suddenly he erupts into wild screaming, hurls his sword aside, and his buddies stare in stunned shock. He bolts away, yells at them to escape while he holds them off, and right then the main character can't stop thinking, what kind of skills does that swordsman have? Suddenly the guy crumples to the ground, terrified out of his mind, and the main character whips out a magic wand, saying it's a good thing he's got that kind of drive. The protagonist whips up fire magic and roars for it to reduce everything to ash. Then he starts smashing the animals that are creeping toward the guy crumpled on the ground. The main character shoots, "Are you okay?" and this guy goes wide-eyed, totally stunned. He plops down beside the slaughtered animals, grateful tears in his eyes, and thanks the protagonist for saving him. Then he leans in, desperate to tell him something. The guy asks Abel if he wants to take the leadership spot, and Abel just shrugs. "If I like it, sure, let me stay. If not, I don't care." Someone spies on them and can't stop thinking. White hair, red eyes, and those weird, swirling magic circles. A bearded man gripping a scythe leans in and declares that this kid is almost certainly a Marin clan member. The man strides up to the trio and asks the protagonist if he's from the Marin clan, and when the protagonist hears it in his voice, he realizes the guy is an elf. So the companion wastes no time and demands to know who this old man really is. He starts talking about his wand. Normally it sharpens your control and even pulls spirits in, so why does his look so messed up? The main character realizes the terrifying truth. He learned all that just by studying him. Abel finally admits he tested it himself and decided there was no reason to add some magic boosting effect to the wand. Then the guy just chuckles and tells him he's got a seriously confident streak. The crew turns to Adelheid and demands he come back with them. Then the dark-haired guy clocks the truth. These are the exact guys they refused to let in before, and all three of them are left staring in shock. The man calls himself Adelheid of the Elves, then cracks into the ruins, desperate to uncover the history of his people. If they help him crack his research, he'll let them ride with him, and if they actually pull off results, he'll go straight to the Lord and bargain hard for their reward, and that shocks them. One of the guys beside Adelheid snaps his head toward him, totally baffled. Then the man blurts out that this mage is somehow more useful than Wagner ever was. "So tell me, what's a Marinclan wizard even doing here?" The very next day, they all rolled up together at the ruins. Then the protagonist grabbed Adelheid and demanded, "Tell me, was it you who shattered that barrier?" After years of research, the man finally cracks the barrier and admits it's all real, only to realize his solo work has paid off so big that he can't help but go asking the local lord to back him. At first, the protagonist twirled on his own, then the Lord stepped in and changed everything. Abel tells everyone the ruins are carved from some weird ore, and he pounds the walls with his fist to prove it. Adelheid shoots back that it must be celestial alchemy, not something from the dirt, and she explains that alchemy is magic that mixes magical know-how with healing remedies. Abel asks if that ore can point them to the light seals, but the man shuts him down, reminding them not to lose sight of who's paying them, insisting he just wants to study the ore. He shoots the boy a sharp question, accusing him of trying to trick him. Abel shuts it down instantly, swearing he has zero intentions of deceit, and the man reassures him that his protection is rock solid. Adelheid wore that face so capricious it was scary, never letting them breathe, and just yesterday he was so furious they were one step away from getting kicked out. That fat guy can't wrap his head around what the great elf is even thinking, dragging some random dude out of who knows where, just to wander around aimlessly while he doesn't touch a single magic formula. No wonder nothing moves forward, and having to trail him the whole time, exhausting, doesn't even cover it. Breaking a seal like that takes serious research just to get a single inch of progress, and the way he pushes Maya makes her feel absolutely awful, while Abel has no clue why this old man is putting everyone through hell. The protagonist snaps that there's no reason to test these magic formulas here, they're just there to beef up the walls, so digging through the magic seal data won't break the barrier at all. The real truth has to be hiding in some bigger magic formula, somewhere else, that's powering everything. The man snaps at him, yelling, "How am I supposed to know? Stop spouting nonsense." Then the guy calmly explains that based on what he saw, the barrier seals match the Pied clans, same core, just a different look on the outside. Abel gets it too, and the man says that's exactly how he understood it. A wizard, yes, sent by the Lord, but he's only a mink and he can't keep up with them. The man insists this is the right move to bring the boy here. The boy thanks him, then catches the old man behind him staring like he's completely lost his mind. Then they stumble into a room packed with a Gricken statue, one the man swears is no decoration, but a power-up for the seal's core, the beating heart of the whole magic formula, and when the main character lays eyes on it, he can't help but call it graceful. Looks like if they manage to crack it, they'll finally break through and push even farther. This thing is a multi-frame barrier built from a whole puzzle of normal blocks. He asks so it's 4 layers, because he's heard 2-layer ones barely ever show up, but this one's a trap. 1 layer doesn't interact with the others at all, so it's most likely really 3. The man shoves his notes and research in his face. The protagonist blurts out how mind-blowing it is. Then everyone freezes at the sight of that tiny, abbreviated formula, and it only gets worse. The man can't even follow the conversation, while Maya's eyes start drooping like she's fighting sleep. The protagonist draws a glowing magic circle and mutters that it's a real headache, because smashing that statue with a straight-up attack demands every ounce of strength he's got. Abel asks why it's smarter not to smash it with magic, and the man laughs it off as some dull little joke, because any spell strong enough to shatter that statue with a straight hit would need an insane, colossal amount of energy. And that guy honestly thinks brute power is a joke, like it's nothing, while this man swears his wild audacity could melt any cold heart, and even if someone could pull off something like that, he's going to guard it so perfectly it never gets touched. The main character realizes this seal is no simple thing, something deeper is hiding behind it, and he's convinced there's an amazing treasure waiting. Then out of nowhere, someone screams about hobgoblins. The whole crew gets boxed in as a massive swarm of tiny goblins charges in, clubs swinging like weapons of doom. The protagonist can't stop asking where they even came from, and the man fires off a guess that they're hiding in the forest, biding their time to strike. Then the boy snaps back that one-on-one would be fair, except there are more of them, and the dark-haired man makes a move to carve out a way for the man to get away, demanding if he should sprint off alone. He asks who's riding with him, then Abel finally gets how this old man could have turned into the Lord's court magician. The man snaps, telling everyone to scoot aside, and the next thing you know they're regretting every step that brought them here, because he unleashes the Ring of Light. Then he charges the goblins and barks that if they want their numbers slashed in half, they'd better follow him, because if they don't, they'll scatter and run. Adelhaide's example clicks in the main character's head. This guy's solid, and he won't even get the chance to show off. All of a sudden, the main character clocks what's happening, erupts in a shout, and demands they capture 3 goblins alive, making the other guy's jaw drop in pure surprise. He yells that he can use them to shatter the seal, and the guy's stunned because it turns out he only needs 3. The man shrugs it off like it's nothing and then cuffs them fast. One of the boys blurts that he can't watch goblins anymore. They look too much like people, and slaughtering them feels disgusting. The man quizzes him about whether the goblins he snagged are okay, and Abel shoots back his thanks. He stunned them with magic, freezing their bodies so they couldn't move for nearly 92 days, and the girl, terrified, blurts out what they're planning to do with them. To crack the seal, they need the power of one specific magical beast, but it takes real time to figure out which one, and that's terrifying because for a seal that's been around for 2,000 years, the beast might already be extinct. So he figured he could steal their energy and swap it in as biomagic, because if every seal was the same, they'd cut through them with 0 trouble. The man's convinced it could actually work, right? He just figured the monster's energy is what everyone needs, without ever realizing he'd be pushed into this exact idea. Abel realizes he might actually be stronger than he ever guessed. He only built this plan from his notes, and now he's terrified it won't work. The goblins' organs have to be rewritten, and they'll need to get the magic stones first. Adelhaide keeps a few top-tier stones in his stash, gold-level quality, so he demands one, and the guy hauls it over without a second thought. The protagonist peeks into the bag and freezes in awe. A royal-class magic stone, meant to help Adelhaide explore the ruins, and they've collected all of these stones. But half of those gifts were handed down straight from the Lord, and with a bright grin, the protagonist declares, "Now we will absolutely never fail." Maya begs him not to do anything reckless, and he snaps back, if she can't stomach blood, then she should look away. Then he slices the goblin open, and the girl freezes in pure horror. He spots a ribbon of magic swirling around him, and suddenly he feels all feathered, because yeah, he's got wings now. Then the bird lets out this croak, and the whole crowd goes silent, stunned. The protagonist says this'll work, then tosses the rest to Adelhaide, who nods, steps in, and unleashes assimilation magic. The goblins crowd beside the statue, and the magic circles start to flare in response, lighting up the boy's face with pure joy, while they tremble, and a vile miasma curls through the air around them. The protagonist blurts out the goblins' names and begs them not to die. Then the boy is absolutely stunned that he even did it. Right after, the barrier shatters into nothing, and the protagonist erupts with joy. Everyone's cheering because they can finally move on. Then, out of nowhere, the moment hits like a historic earthquake and the whole world starts shaking. Suddenly, a creature shows up and tells her the annoying elf actually did a great job sealing away a king like her for 2,000 whole years. This massive black bird roars out to the whole crowd that every single one of them is about to be its next victim. The griffin boasted that he sealed away a king like him for 2,000 years, and now the time was up, because every one of them was about to fall as his next victim. Abel panicked and blared out, screaming about Gaburo, Gabucco, and Gabuto. Then Maya tried to warn him it was deadly there, but Abel insisted he'd break the seal and turn them into his pets. Adele had boomed that he was the final guardian of these ruins, then snapped around to the others and ordered them to stop standing around and use their numbers to ring him in. The man unleashed his magic, spun toward Abel, and ordered him to hit the wings. Then Abel turned on the king, snapped, "How dare you even lay a hand on the Gober brothers," and attacked him too. The hero carved a magical seal, and the monster instantly snapped back, calling him dumb. Abel just swallowed his anger and believed it was the spirit of the wind. The king challenged him, "You really think wind magic will stop me?" And the protagonist blinked in shock before sizing up the attack. Griffins are magical beasts tied to the wind spirits, so even if he tried blasting him with that kind of magic, the king just snapped, asking if he was making fun of him. Then, right then and there, one of his wings got cut clean off. Right after that, the griffin crumpled to the ground, leaving the protagonist reeling in shock, just as his comrades erupted, yelling that this was the moment to strike. After that, every man sprinted straight for the griffin to tear into it, and Abel couldn't believe how weaker it looked than he'd pictured, while Maya, true to her gut, said it was just as strong as she'd expected. Once the griffin was finally dealt with, they charged up to the doors, and Adelheid snapped them open with her magic. The protagonists claimed that the sealed ruins would be revealed. Turns out it was dead on. The men burst into celebration, shouting that it finally happened. The arrow of God and all those legendary treasures were right there. Then the old man tried to claim he'd take the next move, but the other guy hadn't lifted a finger this whole battle. Right then, a weird sound ripped through the air. When they spun around, a whole swarm of rats barreled straight at them, and Abel snapped that they weren't just wandering. They were tracking the scent of every magical beast they'd already crushed. Adelheid blurted that low-class monsters were flooding in one after another. Then Mason charged forward and demanded they all fall to his blade. Abel added that the second he spots a weak enemy, his drive turns ferocious. 30 minutes later, everyone's wiped out, trading stories like, first the goblins, then the griffin, and now the rats. It was their first time battling this many magical beasts, and it drained them dry. Adelheid barked, "We're leaving." What? One of the men stepped up and told him everyone was worn out from the non-stop fighting, that they should just lie down and rest. That set him off. Fury flared, and he shot back that only a weak man would say something like that. The protagonist nodded and said he was on their side. Then he insisted they recheck the corridor where those goblin rats burst in, seal it up tight, and finally explore everything without getting jumped. Adelheid nodded along and told him straight up that even he'd burned through his magical power after the griffin fight. Abel insisted his strength still held, but his stamina was basically on its last breath. Adelheid snapped her gaze to him, flashed a small smile, and agreed, "Let's take a short rest." Then she said they'd pick up their research again tomorrow. After a while, they pulled over for a quick rest, and the protagonist sank by the fire clutching those papers. Then Adelheid crept up behind him and demanded why he wasn't sleeping. Abel told him, "I already crashed for a quick nap, then chugged my homemade potion to smash the drowsiness and sharpen my focus," and with that, he shoved the bottle into the man's hands. Adelheid snapped that they should skip it. Brewing a potion from special medicinal herbs is usually a no-go in every country. He even told me permission was normally required for him, and for the biomagic he used, his village had rules that were straight up out of the ordinary. Abel couldn't help but wonder if those messed up laws even existed beyond the village walls. Then when he headed to the city, he had no luggage to inspect, so he shrugged it off and moved on. Adelheid promised to back him up, owning the griffin's death himself, and demanded he wipe out every trace of his role in the liberation, and he couldn't help but feel grateful for everything Adelheid had done. He'd missed one crucial detail, and that blunder let his research crawl on for years, but there was nobody to pass his life's purpose to, no descendants at all. So Abel leaned in and demanded to know. When did he start digging into the ruins of Zesham? Adelheid claimed it's been around 300 years since he was born, and that he's been doing this ever since, non-stop. Abel guessed it might be closer to 400 years, but staring at him made it almost impossible to tell. A young girl and a swordsman, his power isn't exactly useless, so why should he keep dragging these deadweight fools along? He snapped the words again, then pushed the thought deeper. Was it actually true when it came down to strength? But Abel still has to lean on them for every expense. Mason pays the travel bills, and Maya covers the totem materials. You could call their bond a string of favors. He even admitted, loud and clear, that he just left his village not long ago, and having companions makes him feel way more confident for a bunch of reasons. Adelheid hesitated, then told him to go rest, because tomorrow they'd dive deeper into the ruins again. Abel nodded, agreed, and sent him off with a warm good night. The man told the protagonist he expected big things from him. Then he strode off, chin tilted up as he stared into the sky. A fresh day broke, and the old man kept yelling about how awesome everything was, about the crazy pile of royal-grade magic stones, while Abel finally clicked and realized that's what was fueling the barriers. The protagonist bet there's more going on here, and honestly, those elven gatherings from 2,000 years ago aren't the kind of thing you can just brush off. Adelheid caught their conversation, then slipped away, and the protagonist couldn't believe it. Standing there staring at a mountain of treasure, the man stayed totally calm, like none of it even fazed him. After a while, they finally closed in on the next gate. Adelheid thrust his hands up and unleashed his opening magic. As soon as the gates cracked open, they rushed inside. Abel spun around and saw golems everywhere, and Adelheid burst out laughing like she couldn't believe it. The man finally made it here, blurted out that he needed to act. Then he cast the spell **O, fire, form, sphere **. Abel leaned in and demanded what he was up to, and Adelheid shot back, like always, that he was cooking up something extraordinary, because even among the high elves, nobody could ever resist his magical formula. He said that God's arrow was too precious to ever land in an orc's hands. It was his, a descendant of Zadium. The moment his mouth opened, the protagonist froze. His words shocked him so hard that he blurted out, right there, "Wait, are you really saying I'm a descendant of Zadium?" Adelheid declared that the Zashumians had shattered their crusade, been torn from the land of the sky, and now the moon's magic barely crawled down to earth, draining their strength until their entire race was doomed to fade away. The protagonist froze, replaying his thoughts, and suddenly knew why he felt older than he really was. Then Adelheid leaned in and said he couldn't deny his ancestors. The man said they raised this stronghold to choke the land's power. Also, the country would collapse, then the Zeshamites could seize the throne back. The king of Zashem made a brutal mistake that day. He fell for a mink's daughter, let that bond rule him, then slapped a massive barrier across the entire Zashem stronghold and wiped it out. Mixing Adelheid's noble blood with those pathetic, short-lived minks is a crime you can't forgive. No, not ever. And the king didn't just kill her ancestors, he wiped out their real history and hid the truth in shame. Maya's jaw dropped at the man's words, then he leaned in and told her the truth. These golems were built with Zashem's methods, made to be nothing but weapons. To loose the god's arrow, they'll need a mountain of magic stones. Luckily, with what's left of the barrier and everything he's hauled in, he'll have the materials for 3 brutal shots, then he'll seize the land and own every magic stone in sight. People immediately started grilling him about weapons and conquering the land, and Abel couldn't shake the doubt. Did he really want to hoard that many magic stones, and why did he just spill his whole plan? Then the man stepped in and offered to be his right-hand man. He froze at his words, then snapped, calling the man by name, and right then Maya burst in, shouting his attention. Abel swore he'd pretend he never heard him, then Adelheid let out a chuckle, saying, "Come on, I'm the one dealing with a child." She sounded apologetic, but the truth was clear. She prayed she could keep her head on. Smoke erupted around them, and the protagonist ripped his totem from the chaos, shouting for it to transform. Then he unleashed the power to absorb everything in sight. Once the surge hit, he spun toward Maya and Mason and ordered them to move in, straight to the World Tree Totem. They barreled toward him right in time for Abel to shout, "Totem, swallow the smoke." Totem obeyed, the haze got wiped out completely, and the people crumpled to the ground, drained. Adelheid stared at him and demanded to know if this was truly what he'd been hiding, especially with Amaran, the one who deals in wooden totems, and Abel snapped around to the man and ordered him to surrender. Adelheid told him, "I can't get through to you," and the boy shot back, "Then I can't afford to lose." That pressure was too much to bottle up, so once again he demanded, "Come on, just give in." He swore that if his people weren't here, he would have been done for, but then everything shifted. He pulled out a crystal, turned to the golem, and commanded him to obey. Adelheid snapped his gaze to Abel and said, "That's Zeshem's soldier, the white giant of destruction." Then he leaned in and declared, "You'll carry his name in your head as the one who struck the hardest for Zeshem's rebirth, so accept it and die." Maya burst into instant screams, and Mason snapped his head toward the protagonist, urging them to bolt because the golems were moving way too fast. Then the protagonist hit back, saying everything suddenly made perfect sense. Abel strode up to one of the golems, snapped his power into command, and forced it to obey, while Adelheid stared, utterly stunned by what she just heard. The man snapped that it was impossible, and demanded how he even knew the formula to control the golem. Abel shot back that he'd studied the data left behind when the barrier finally fell apart. Adelheid couldn't believe it. He cracked the encryption with one look, but then he pointed out the catch. Without that huge magic stone, the golem wouldn't even wake up, and he'd somehow made it work on that one. The man snapped that he wasn't born with elven blood, so the order couldn't be shut off. Then he yanked his hand up and barked at the white giant to move. Right then, the hero snapped at the golem to fall in line, and instantly every golem obeyed him. Adelheid's eyes went wide as the horde turned on itself, brawling and smashing into one another. The man snapped, insisting this was impossible. Only human magic could pull it off. Then he jerked his hand again and ordered the white giants to move, but they refused. Abel blurted that he'd seized control of every golem in this room, and trying to break through his defenses with them was a total dead end. Adelheid snapped into a scream and ordered him to stop messing with her. Then she unleashed her magic and started beating him back, and when the chaos started spilling onto everyone else, the boy was begging for him to stop. The man bolted to escape, and the protagonist shouted his name, ordering him to stop, because he didn't even know what the arrow of God was, but he refused to let that shot fly. Abel snapped to the others and warned that this was probably going to be dangerous, so the girl should stay put here for him, while Maya insisted she wasn't much of a fighter but could still back him up by carrying the World Tree Totem. Then she pleaded for him not to leave her behind, and he nodded, telling her to stay alert and stick close as he moved. Right away, Mason snapped, asking if things had spiraled out of control. Truth is, he'd already started planning his escape, but a leader's job is to watch everyone's back, so he stayed and went with him. Then the three of them sprinted after Adelheid. After a little while, Abel told them, "I'll wait here," then begged them to figure out a way to stop that man, shocking his fellow travelers to their core. He admitted his stamina was totally gone. Those grueling hours dissecting the ruins finally crushed him, and every last potion was empty. His comrades snapped that they couldn't stop the target unless he went down with them. Misan hauled him onto his back, and Abel snapped that he couldn't swing that hard. Doing so would only make everything worse, then grilled him, asking why he'd even chosen to become an adventurer. The protagonist admitted he only wanted a quick buck. Then Misen leaned in and said an adventurer once saved his life. Back when he was just a kid, he stumbled all on his own into a magical beast's nest, and the moment he thought he was finished, the monster surged to strike, only for a passing adventurer to come sprinting in and save him. Mason admitted he can't take Adelheid down by himself, but since he's the leader, he swore he'll pull out every move to back them up. The protagonist shot back, asking if he looked totally pathetic right then, and Maya just couldn't bring herself to say anything. After what felt like forever, they finally reached their destination. Mason panted, asked just how high they'd climbed, then snapped his gaze to the others and wondered out loud if their enemy really was lurking right beyond this hall. The moment they stepped inside, the main character snapped that it was way too dark. He couldn't see a thing, and he had no clue what was happening. Mason surged up to Abel and asked if he could seize control of the creature in front of them. Abel snapped back that he'd handled golems like this before, and maybe, just maybe, he could pull it off again. And that's only because Adelheid finally had the time to polish that barrier to perfection. Maya even demanded to know if they truly had to go beat this golem. Abel grinned and said the room was huge, perfect for beefing up the spell and blasting it at the golem, but right then Mason suddenly tore toward the enemy, and everyone scrambled to stop him. When the boy finally reached the golem, it erupted with a terrifying roar that froze him in place. Then it snapped into pursuit and came chasing hard, while Maya screamed its name. Mason told them to go stop Adelheid and promised that once it was done, they'd blast his story to everyone and turn him into a hero. In that moment, the protagonist snapped that shouting was pointless. He wouldn't hear a word, and because they were running out of time, he was going to wipe that golem out. The protagonist lifted his wand, snapped a glowing magic seal into place, and then unleashed an enhancement spell. Right in front of them, the magical metal hide M finally appeared, crafted by weaving magical power, spirits, and whatever else hangs in the air into one alloy, and its quality always shifts depending on who forged it. Then the guy hurled the ball straight at the golem, and Abel cheered, only for the thing to suddenly stop moving like it hit a brick wall. Turns out he'd smashed the floor and cracked a column with his ball. Abel practically begged the local lord not to make him pay, and Maya shot back that they should blame Adelheid instead. Abel nodded along, saying at least this time the damage was forgivable, so honestly, they should be thankful that was all they'd done, and then the ground started shaking. Mason demanded answers, and Abel shot back whether that busted column was truly one of those unbreakable pillars. Then, right when the doubt hit, he spotted a door nearby. He snapped his head to Misen and demanded, "Pick me up, carry me to the door." Misen shot back, "Is it really that bad? Shouldn't we bolt and get out of here?" Abel started warning them that if they sat on their hands, disaster would hit, and the thought of losing someone so brilliant made his stomach twist. Then he slipped back to their private conversation. He even replayed Adelhaide's final words, how much she truly believed he'd deliver, and wondered what might have happened if they'd crossed paths somewhere else. Misen demanded they ditch this madman right here, because how were they supposed to haul a bunch of drugged people out? And no way would he slip back to the city after what he'd done. Once they caught him, they'd execute him. The protagonists were convinced Adelhaide would rather rot in the ruins he'd guarded for years than get dragged into the city and executed. Mason snapped again that they had to break free, urging them to clamber onto his back. Then Abel hesitated and begged for a moment. If he could fix the golem, they'd escape on it and ride straight out. After what felt like forever, the door swung open, and the protagonist and his crew burst onto the threshold, mounted on a single golem, while a whole cluster of more stood waiting nearby. After they finally drove far enough, they pulled over. Mason let out a rough breath and said he was relieved they'd made it just in time. He said Adelhaide would be buried alive, and Abel's heart dropped. Then he blurted out, "Wait, what's the arrow of God you're clutching?" Because the man was gripping some kind of crystal in his fist, and the girl demanded answers too. "What is it?" The protagonist swore it was a chunk of wall torn from under the rubble. He'd grabbed it before they even bolted, but he's dead certain it's strange ore, forged by the elves themselves with alchemy. The moment he let the piece go, it lifted off and drifted through the air like it had a mind of its own. Abel swore it had a special trick. Once you poured in the right magic wavelength, it would change how it floated. He clung to Adelhaide's words, 2,000 years ago. The elves who fell to earth built this fortress to claw back the heavenly land, yet he couldn't wrap his head around why the Zadium elves would stack it so far away from the heavens. Right then Maya snapped his name and told him to look up, so when the protagonist finally lifted his eyes, a fortress hung in the sky inside a massive, shimmering barrier. Turns out Adelhaide was right there, and the moment he opened his mouth, he said the time had finally come. Zeshem's awakening had started. He stared at the truth and realized somehow he still hadn't actually beaten the beast, Gollum. He was convinced every foe he'd crushed before had only ground Gollum down by controlling so many of them, and there was no way he could keep his footing now, no way he'd have magic in him to fight on. Adelhaide burst out laughing and told him straight up, when it all comes down to it, only an elf can break Zeshem's weapon. Then he stared at the seal on his hand and finally snapped his eyes toward the sky plane. The man promised that he'd kick things off by blasting a god's arrow straight into Lamarn, and with a city that huge, one single shot would turn it into a roaring blaze, so he had to put on a massive spectacle to prove he was truly unstoppable. Adelhaide demanded Ulfheim, the heavenly country, to hold its breath, because this time he swore he'd drag her down to earth for good. Right then the tower started to tremble hard. He blinked in shock because the barrier had been busted, and now he couldn't stop wondering who or what could hit it that hard. Mason gushed that it was insane, then demanded how he managed to fling that chunk of metal so damn far, and the moment Maya saw it, she erupted into screams, yelling that they had to get it out of the sky. Right then the crack in the barrier vanished in a blink, and Adelhaide, watching through the screen, burst into laughter at the shocked faces on the other side. He blurted out that the barrier could heal itself. This fortress wall won't budge unless you smash every surrounding node by killing its power. Maya froze in shock. Sure, their hit landed, but Abel still asked if that barrier just heals itself, and Mason snapped back that attacking him was pure waste. The protagonist stared at what he'd just witnessed and figured the full recovery took about 15 seconds, then nodded like that was a win, lifted his wand, and moved in. Adelhaide couldn't believe he finally caught up to him. Then his instincts screamed, "All right, now you've got to back off." Suddenly another brutal hit rattled the barrier, and the man snapped that these attacks were pointless. He made it sound like the other guy still didn't get it. He needed to quit, because leaning on sheer magical power alone would never save him, but he didn't get to finish. Right then the fortress started to tremble and roar, shaking the man so hard he stumbled back. He snapped his head around, desperate to see what on earth was happening. The protagonist said, "If one attack won't cut it, then I'll just keep hammering. So fast my repairs can't keep up and I overwhelm you anyway." And Mason can't believe he actually went straight for brute force. Adelhaide erupted into a scream, yelling that Abe was doomed. He dragged him along thinking he'd be the perfect assistant, but Abe ended up ruining everything Adelhaide was trying to accomplish. This is the power of the Marin clan, the gods of death who rule the battlefield. and once he's crossed, forgiveness is dead. He'd rather die than let his plans get crushed. Adohide unleashed his power and barked the order. Every weapon snapped into place, and the fortress cannons swung outward in an instant. Maya saw it and went pale with fear. Then Mazin said it looked like a whole swarm of guns had just spawned there, and he snapped, "So what do we do?" The boy echoed his last question. Then he unleashed his magic again, calling forth the magical metal chitim, and as several of them materialized, they shot through the sky straight for the fortress. Maya blurted out that it was unbelievable, and Abel snapped back that the magical metal forged by his power couldn't possibly get beaten by these stone tools, while Mazin stared in shock, realizing Abel was once again brute-forcing his way through everything. The protagonist vowed he'd soon squeeze him for answers, because if he opened fire inside the city, everything would go up in flames. Adelheid burst into screams, insisting it couldn't be possible. The fortress that hadn't taken a single scratch in 2,000 years, the dream he'd poured his whole life into, and the hope of Zesham. He never expected to fire up a weapon meant to smash a celestial kingdom straight down to Earth, so the moment he hit the button, he chose the god's arrow. The protagonist and his squad stood on the ground, staring up as Mazin demanded, "What is that?" And when Maya called it creepy, Abel couldn't help but wonder if this really was the arrow of God. That soft crackle, it's probably the tail end of shattered spirit energy, usually so faint humans can't even sense it, which means this kind of weapon demands a massive flood of magic power, fed by a whole army of celestial spirits. He admitted it was only a hunch, but the crystal suddenly blasted out power like a warning flare. Yeah, it was probably about to fire a laser, and the others went completely speechless. Abel snapped that the magical metal couldn't possibly survive something like this. There was no way to toughen it up. Then Maya cut in, urging them to run, but the boy refused to budge and swore he'd try something anyway. He tossed Maya an object and told her to hold it steady. Then Mazin raised a brow and asked why he wasn't planning to use his staff. He said he only needed it to draw out spiritual power for the spell. At that moment, Adelheid ripped into Tom with a scream, declaring this was his end and shouting "Magician Marin," then demanded he vanish. Right then, the protagonist started planning his move: squeeze the fireball, slap on a fresh layer, then squeeze it again. Because if the Abel ball could be built that way, it might wreck anything he dared to target. He stumbled onto this spell the night he passed out, and he never in a million years thought he'd get the chance to test it this soon. Once the orb was forged, he hurled it straight at Adelheid's fortress, and Adelheid couldn't believe what she was seeing. When that massive blast of power slammed into the fortress, it detonated with a thunderous explosion that lit up everything in sight. In the middle of the city scene, Maya sat there munching a burger, then leaned in and asked her friends straight up if they agreed. She was talking about that report detailing the magical beast's destruction, and the reward being handed over, when Mazin Abel shot back that his rank upgrade might swing depending on what the report says, because yeah, he hadn't exactly been on time either. He also said the griffin just vanished, along with the ruins, like it never existed, and that he could climb ranks fast if he truly set his mind to it. Then he remembered what happened right after the Abel ball stopped the god's arrow. When the explosion detonated, Mazin lunged in front of Maya to shield her with his body, and she clamped her hands over her ears. Right then, Abel snapped and chose to unleash his wind magic. Gusts of wind slammed against Adelheid as he hung in the air, then eased him down to the ground like the sky was carrying him to safety. Mason pushed him for answers, but the protagonist just smirked and said he'd let the city decide what his future would become. Maya sprinted to the guild and warned them the ruins had collapsed. Then Abel, right after the blast, wrestled control of the golem, and it detonated in a blinding flash that shook everything. The girl said it was the real deal, and she answered them straight. Then the old man ordered her to translate, asking if her words truly meant they had stopped the ruins from turning to dust. The man blew up, screaming that no mage could pull this off, like they were chasing achievements just to brag, and that's exactly why he refused to get tangled up with the villagers. The protagonist figured that even if this man swallowed every word, it would still stir up trouble, so for now, he calls the outcome a win. Suddenly, they overheard two young men trading rumors about the barrier going down. One swore he'd heard a massive explosion, while the other insisted that an elf serving the land's master had tried to grab the ruins, only to blow them up instead. And now this elf is locked up after dodging a death sentence. Abel just admitted that once the ruins are gone, there's nothing left they can do. He has no clue what Adelheid was thinking, because to him, this man was the one who taught him magic after he left his village. He's grateful, and there's no way he'd ever get his own hands dirty by killing him. The protagonist kept his thoughts to himself, hoping the man would be okay. Right then, the brunette snapped that the elf was a total bad person. He'd always figured elves were smarter than humans, but chasing their cravings and torching the ruins felt downright foolish. Then Maya cut in, asking if she was right, and suddenly it made sense. Those elves weren't just proud, they were unshakably so. That whole conclusion, his rage swallowing every inch of him, turned into pure hell for Adelheid, and right then, Mason shouted out to them. He quizzed the protagonist about his body, and the guy snapped back that he'd been stuck in bed for 2 straight days, wounded to the bone, and he desperately needed his potion. The guy tells him he's got intel on a wanted man, and he's certain Abel can handle it perfectly, only this time Abel can't roll with him because he's got another case pulling at him. Mason told him that 2 guys came looking for help the other day, and the protagonist immediately asked, "Wait, are you talking about the same 2 who caused all that chaos at the guild?" Mason instantly remembered how, right after the mission, those 2 came barreling up to him with bright, happy grins, shouting that they'd heard he'd climbed up to E rank, then throwing their congratulations at him like it was the biggest news ever. Their words hit him like a punch. He scrambled to make sense of what was going on, and they told him straight that they'd been searching for him ever since everything went down. Honestly, without him, they can't take down magical beasts at all, so they come running and beg him to lead their team again. He has to come back as the leader. Mason's face lit up at their words. He swore there was nothing he couldn't do and he'd get it done. Maya beamed like she'd just won too, and Abel couldn't shake the feeling that they only called him after he'd earned his rank. Was he truly happy, or was something off? The main character blurted that he just can't refuse. He literally doesn't know how. Then Mason lined in and demanded who the rumors claimed was behind it all. While they gathered inside the Marin clan's main house, the leader snapped everyone to attention, thanked them for showing up, and before he could spill the real trouble, he had to swallow his pride and apologize for his own mistake. Abel did leave notes on how to grow frankincense leaves, but his method can't be copied. Only Abel can pull it off. The man swore it hit them from the way everything on this page was written, and right then Abel's father, Zalret Balak, started snapping at his son. He couldn't stop thinking how he'd finally thought he was about to earn a real reputation in the village, until this happened, all because of his right to the incense leaves. Right then one of the men shot to his feet, burst into loud laughter, and demanded, could they really not recreate them? Turns out the one in charge was Norman, the head of the Kralko family. Then he snapped, if Abel's fragrant leaves are gone, I've got nothing left to worry about here. And with that, he swore their family's leaves would rise again. Right then he hucked the coin bag to the ground, spit out, to hell with these magic coins, anyone who looks down on me is going to regret it. Others at the meeting started calling him petty, like he never even thought about how anyone who tasted Abel's fragrant leaves would struggle to go back to their old ways. Yet somehow, it really does end up helping the Karlko family. Chief Marin said they'd start by blending Abel's fragrant leaves with other products first, then tweak the mix little by little until everyone's ready for the new flavor. He told himself once they nailed the magic coin system, the incense leaves would finally do their job, keeping the leaves from rotting before their time. The man swore they'd keep the real talk locked in secret, and if it ever leaked, the whole place would explode into a riot. The head declared the Rieta family would back the Karlko family's development, and then, right out of nowhere, shock hit the man's senses. He bolted outside, convinced he just felt a weird magical force in the air. Then he whipped around and figured every competent mage in the village should be crammed inside this hut right now, waiting for Abel. Yeah, it was probably just his imagination. At that exact moment, Totem slammed a knuckle against the window and popped onto the sill. Then the girl greeted him, and right there he delivered the congregation's leader's message. The girl blurted out she couldn't stop wondering why the village head and her own father suddenly stopped worrying about her brother, because deep down she was convinced he'd been left scared, alone, and wandering through some wild, unfamiliar land. Then it hit her she spotted something that just might work, and she blurted, "This has to work." She was convinced the village chief would take the search for her brother just as seriously, too. With nerves buzzing, she looked at him and told him, plain and simple, to wait. It turned out to be Giselle. She grinned and promised that his little sister would definitely come for him. At the northern edge of the Dinlark kingdom, inside Catel's main temple, dark smoke choked the corridors. Then the man whipped around and told his companion she'd done great because she'd finally broken the seal off the staff. The girl blurted that years and years had slammed by since she'd seen the outside world, then whipped toward the boy and demanded, "Do you know what I am?" "You're the greater demon," she said she was, and when he answered, he named her as the great demon of knowledge and destruction, Zalamonia. Suddenly the girl's senses snapped. She felt something lurking, locked eyes on a nearby spirit, and realized it. Last time she saw him, he was just middle rank, now he'd grown up. Zalamonia snapped her head toward Magus and ordered him to go south, no hesitation, and he nodded, asking where they were headed. She pointed him to Lamarn. Dinlert Territory, Lamarn Adventurers Guild, Western Branch. The girl stared at the stash laid out in front of her and snapped, These aren't just items, this is the ear and skin of a head-eating demon. The moment the others heard that, they started firing questions like, wait, are you sure he's the real main demon eater? His skin was so unbreakable that countless adventurers had shattered their swords on him, and now they couldn't believe this kid was the one who pulled it off. The protagonist froze in shock, couldn't get a word out, while Maya swore it felt like they'd somehow gone and become famous. Abel thought it was more like something far weirder. People started whispering that it was obviously an ear ripped from some other beast, painted jet black to look real, while others insisted he'd just dragged out a corpse no one else could even find, because nobody could agree whether this demon was really as powerful as the rumors claimed. Abel instantly knew this wasn't recognition or respect at all, and right then the guild administrator warned them that rank verification could take a while, because this was the first time they'd ever handled something this rare. He swore he could practically feel those sideways stares crawling over him, and if he had to deal with that every time he showed up for an exchange, it'd be a disaster, because once he hit C rank, he might even get watched from above. In his mind, most adventurers chased higher ranks for fame, but he needed cold, hard money, and that would have been a nightmare if he couldn't move freely. So he started hunting for another way. Right then, a voice cut through the air, asking if this kid really crushed the head-eating demon. Then a massive brute closed in on him and snapped that lying is just plain wrong. Everyone spotted Gaston right away, and one of the guys snapped, screaming at him to stop, because they'd already gotten bombarded with complaints about his behavior, and if he kept messing with the adventurers, things were going to get ugly. Gaston said sometimes it's the right move, because plenty of adventurers try to muscle up their ranks by cheating the guild, so he warned them not to mess around with him just because he's being lenient with the low-rank folks. The man snapped that it was all because of people like Abel, so much talent getting locked out of their rightful spots, and the bespectacled man shot back, that's exactly why it's our job to judge, assign, and rank them. Gaston claimed the head-eating demon's danger rank sat above C rank, but this dude couldn't beat him, so it made everyone question how they were judging things, and Abel finally snapped, so what's your rank? Then two guys shot to their feet and declared that Gaston was D rank, and not just any D rank either. This dude was a veteran's veteran, clinging to D rank status for the last 10 straight years. Gaston snapped, asking if he truly meant he couldn't get up after all these years, and the second man started stumbling through an apology, while the protagonist felt like he finally understood the whole thing. Abel figured he was nothing more than a bandit with a decent build, just not charming enough to earn the noble's contract. He scratched his chin, then grinned like he'd just figured it out, already picturing how he could use it. Abel snapped his head toward the man and demanded, "Is it really you again? Because if they kept making noise, this whole thing would blow up fast. So how about we talk in private," he said, pointing her to a back alley. "Maya, just wait there for me." What? The hero stepped out with Gaston, and Gaston immediately demanded praise, claiming he had more courage than anyone ever gave him credit for. Gaston leaned in and asked if he thought he was ready, then Abel shot back that he should wait, because all he wanted to do was talk. The guy didn't buy it and hit him with the question again. The boy figured if he beat him half to death right here, the other hunters would just get even more jealous, and he didn't want that, so he nodded and admitted it was true. He wasn't the one who went after that demon. Gaston grilled him, demanding an answer. Did he really admit it wasn't true, or was he trying to skate by with just an "I'm sorry"? Abel shot back that he wasn't apologizing at all. He was just trading money to replace another man who'd been stripped of his status as an adventurer. He couldn't risk saying his name, this guy was pure danger, so he kept it shut or the same threat might hit Gaston too, and when it was over, he realized the lie he told was way too easy to spot. Gaston let out a sharp breath and claimed he'd known all along. He could see right through Abel, and somehow Abel only thought he must be happy being such a fool. The man told Tom, "If you want this kept secret, it'll cost you," then demanded money, and Abel shot back that he needed money just to survive, so he couldn't pay him. After that, the protagonist leaned in and asked what he thought about doing this trade again. Next time, the guy wanted him to swap materials for the job, and Gaston's eyes widened at his answer. Abel admitted that at first it felt awesome that it boosted his rank, but it still freaked him out, because for a guy as weak as him, doing something like that didn't seem possible. Yet if someone as strong and brutal as he was started pulling it off, the silence wouldn't last and attention would come. He also swore he'd pocket every single cent from the exchange, so both of them would win. Gaston just had to ask if he was really promising he could rake in the money. Meanwhile, his friends were going on and on that nobody in this town could take down Gaston in a fight, while the other one kept buzzing Maya that she was cute. Meanwhile, Maya shot back loudly that Abel was insanely strong and everything was going to be just fine. Right then, the door swung open and there was Gaston. One of the boys blurted at him at once, then demanded, "Are you done with the other kid?" Gaston drove a punch into one of the guys and demanded, "What the hell are you doing here?" Nobody saw it coming. He said squeezing tears out of a girl like that was the dirtiest thing you could ever do, and his friends demanded to know why he put them through it. The main character showed up and shot the girl an apology for making her wait, then guest Owen whipped around to the boys and demanded, "Isn't it pathetic to keep gossiping about other people's wins?" They started digging into what he'd begun, but he cut them off mid-sentence and snapped that they'd gotten it all wrong, so now he'd set them straight himself. Abel swore to Maya he'd lay everything out for her later. After a while they dug in and he spilled the entire story, saying once they had this sorted, they could go right back to hunting monsters with zero worries, and every last coin would get poured into new gear for the next hunt. The protagonist started rattling off every provision he needed, and the new knife Maya asked him why he was suddenly hunting for so much money. Abel claimed he needed it for his daily expenses and promised he'd pay her back. Then, out of nowhere, the girl shot up from the table. She demanded to know why he was so desperate to give the money back, even though she'd already told him not to. Then she pressed harder, asking if he truly wanted to run from her that badly. She grilled him, "Is it because I'm useless? I'll give it my all." Abel snapped back, "Wait," but he wasn't saying what she thought. All she can think about is one terrifying truth: someone always wants to leave her, so it shattered her back in her hometown. Abel snapped that he'd never be shameless enough to owe a girl, and then he fired back that he had plenty of other things he wanted, so they needed to handle it all first. Maya blinked and asked, "So what do you want to do?" He blurted out that he wanted to forge magical tools from chimeras and golems. Then, of all things, he tried to build a handheld telephone, and she shot back at once, asking what he meant. Abel once stumbled on a page about a monster species that uses magic to talk across vast distances, like they fire off a magical electromagnetic signal to link up with each other. If he manages to invent a handheld telephone in this world, it's going to blow up in popularity. He can already feel the hype, and Maya just can't wrap her head around it. The girl teased that he had big plans. Right then, a sharp knock rattled the window and Mason showed up, greeting them like they were already in sync. The boy leaned in and demanded to know if the protagonist had spotted anything weird in the forest, so the protagonist shot the question right back at him. Maya couldn't shake the thought that he meant the same headless fish they'd found scattered by the river, and Abel snapped back that the monster must have chomped them. After that, though, he hadn't spotted anything weird. Mason swore they were heading the other way, but the moment the order hit, it demanded every adventurer under B rank be shoved back down. Abel just thinks the message will reach the Adventurers Guild any minute. Then the boy blurted out that the detachment the Lord sent got jumped. Abel snapped, "How did it happen?" After a while they set their sights on the forest, and Maya shot him a worried look. Rank B adventurers weren't allowed to enter. Abel didn't flinch. He said the griffin lurking in the ruins of Zesham was rank B2. "That's exactly why we'll be fine, because the girl swears she's with an expedition team hunting a living tree, and if she's telling the truth, it has to be out there somewhere in this sea of trees." Maya said exactly what she'd feared, that going alone was a bad idea, and right then something hit Abel, so she snapped, "What happened?" The protagonist admitted he'd sprained his leg, and soon they finally stopped so he could breathe. He chugged water like he'd been starving, relieved to rest at last. Then the girl asked, "Are you really okay?" Abel swore his wand would snap to life if it sensed some weird magical force nearby, but he couldn't keep his hand up while he walked. He shot up with a plan, then summoned the totem and had it blaze the path, guiding the detection of any magic in the air, while she watched and asked if it didn't get exhausting to keep holding her up all the time. The protagonist told her, "Don't sweat it, I've never run out of mana." The girl's panic faded and she nodded, "Then let's go." Maya said teleportation magic was super convenient. Then she raised the question, could it grab their luggage or drop them straight into the heart of the forest? He shook his head and told her he couldn't use that kind of magic. The World Tree's totem is packed with a massive stash of mana, letting him teleport for insane distances, and once he even tried to use it to bolt from the village, but he couldn't just jump yet. He had to set up a magic circle first. Abel said he could teleport back to the hotel, but he'd have to leave her alone, so she begged him not to, saying she'd tough it out and carry the luggage herself, and Abel snapped back that he wouldn't. Abel strode along, talking about the demonic tree like it was the biggest secret in the world, couldn't wait a second longer to witness it, because it was packed with terrifying magic, and he was already itching to turn it into a totem. Maya demanded, "Is it really from a tree that attacks people?" But the guy just brushed her off, insisting powerful magic trees were everywhere in the village, only for Maya to point out that there were basically none here. The protagonist bragged that he'd crafted an all-powerful totem from the World Tree, so he was itching to forge a combat one. Then Maya spotted a gorgeous flower right then. Abel swore it was a papaga flower, usually blazing red petals, while she leaned in and said, "Look at this purple one, it's gorgeous." Then Abel recalled a thing he'd read. The flower's color can shift based on the magic hanging in the air. Right then a voice slammed into their ears, commanding them to worship him as a god, or face death, and Maya snapped, "What are you?" Abel instantly knew this wasn't some normal voice, it had been planted straight into their heads. Right then a sound ripped through the air, and an impossible object materialized in front of them, like a blur of nightmare. The protagonist just stared and said, "It was here already," because it looked less like a magical beast and more like a tree packed with a demon's soul. A cursed tree packed with a demon must be a sacrifice to let the compulp spirits live on as spirit beast, and when they die, they shatter apart piece by piece, returning to the lesser spirits. Maya said he looked like an evil totem, and the tree snapped back, asking how she could compare him to some dumb statue. Then the protagonist cut in and told her to get out. Abel spun toward the tree and sneered that calling it just a statue was pure audacity. He was going to prove what his masterpiece could do, and right on cue, his assistant stepped into view. Right then, the tree launched a full assault on his totem, but he slipped away from every single strike like a pro. The demon smirked that he was such a cheeky kid, and the boy figured he was 1 second away from dropping dead. When the tree snapped into an attack on the totem, he dodged it with ease again and left the thing reeling in disbelief. Then Abel casually told them the truth. He'd wired a basic combat protocol into his world tree totem, so any physical assault would just bounce off uselessly. The demon's rage flared as it snapped that it was just a totem, then kept smashing him with brutal, unbelievable force while the protagonist froze, scrambling for the next move, until Maya stepped in and demanded, "What are you talking about?" What? His world tree totem covers everything, so it barely has any bite. Now he's thinking about building a proper battle totem soon, and Maya asks the real question. How are they supposed to win this fight if all they do is dodge? He admitted it wasn't some big master plan. He was just dying to find out what would work best against that tree. These roots creep way too slowly for a tree packed with that kind of magical power, so maybe he's splitting his power between each one, and that's exactly when he starts figuring out what he has to do next. Maya said the guy had nothing in his head except totems. Then the tree started shrieking, demanding the wind, and blasted a whirlwind straight toward them. Abel's totem got blasted away, tearing a deep furrow into the ground, and Maya instantly shouted at him. Then the tree demanded if they'd seen it, warning that its power dwarfed anything a simple totem could ever hold. He couldn't believe he'd have to reach for a whole new kind of attack, outside plain brute force, so now he knows he's got to push harder to upgrade his world tree totem. Abel snapped his totem into the air, and it materialized right in front of him. Maya's joy exploded into tears, while the tree staggered at the wild sight. The protagonist snapped that they should quit playing these games, and the tree shot back, "How dare you say that when you're literally a god?" Especially since the protagonist was blasting wind magic like it was nothing. Right then the tree crumpled to the ground, roots exploding outward while every last leaf rained down like it had been yanked out by fate. Abel calmly said he'd only scattered the spirits and sent them back to their true forms, and yeah, his clan really was the best at that kind of magic. First, he has to test what state it's in, because the magical conductivity is insanely high, like it could even become a piano. He can tweak its height, cut out the root, then turn the whole thing into something totally new. After he wrapped up his scheme with the tree, he spun toward the girl and ordered her to watch. Then he built a battle totem and dubbed it Ashura 5000 asterisk, and finally commanded it to start dancing. The protagonist dragged her attention to the masterpiece and pressed, "Tell me it isn't amazing, tell me it's incredible," and when Maya was left completely stunned, she just nodded along. Then she blurted out why it had that name, and Abel told her it was basically the number of totems he'd made before he was even here. Then she leaned in and asked how they could possibly bring him along if he was too big. The protagonist grinned and swore that just like his world tree totem, he can teleport at any time. He'll bank on that power when it matters most. Abel couldn't stop wondering if this detour would count as proof they'd finished the job, because right here, thanks to this tree, he'd finally mapped out how to build a phone, and all he had to do now was squeeze out more money. Right then Zalamonia felt it, something was off. Megas snapped, asking if anything had happened. Her heart raced as she realized she couldn't sense her old friend anymore, like he'd teleported in silence. She wondered if she could still feel magic in her bones, or if she was just totally wrong, so she blurted out that nothing special was going on. Then the Megas asked, "So, are we heading to Lamarn?" Zalamonia lit up and said it was the perfect moment. Since the warm-up was done, they were moving on now, and she couldn't wait for the changes they were about to unleash on this world. At that exact moment, the protagonist lay in bed, and then Giselle appeared right in front of him, swearing everything was fine even as she couldn't walk anymore, while Zalamonia stood nearby with her student. He just couldn't wrap his head around what he was seeing. A fresh morning broke over Lamarn, right in front of the Adventurers Guild's western branch, and that brunette suddenly decided to gamble everything, ditch his adventurer job on the spot. The other guy shot him a look and demanded, "So what are you gonna do?" But the truth hit hard. They had zero skills to fall back on and absolutely no connections. He also admitted they still had weapon loans hanging over their heads, and even if they dodged paying them, he didn't think he'd have a single bite of food tomorrow. Right then, someone thumped him on the back. The protagonist told them to celebrate, because Gaston had cleared the northern forest nest of monsters, so he promised the ban would be lifted any day now. The guys snapped back with pure hostility, demanding he shut up and stop the nonsense since they were desperate for the money, only for him to shoot back that he was telling the truth. Then the protagonist jabbed at the entrance and demanded, "Look inside." Gaston stepped in, clutching a bundle in his arms. People started whispering that this couldn't be a mistake. This was the exact telepathic black road that unleashes brutal winds, the same one that tore apart the team they sent. People started whispering, did Gaston really do it? Even though he'd been D-rank for years, because everyone just knew he'd pull it off. The administrator shot out an apology for making him wait, then said this kind of case demands a special kind of deep inspection. Yet the man just nodded and said he understood. When they pressed him about what happened, he snapped back that he couldn't recall every detail from the pathetic monsters he'd crushed. Then the crowd started whispering, stunned, calling him a real pro, because that was straight up unbelievable. The administrator called out for them to follow, led the way to a special stand, and he agreed, then blurted that he wanted it done right now. Right away, people started buzzing about getting back to the forest and that everyone would soon be adventurers again. The protagonist told them he was relieved he'd stepped in. Thanks to him, the whole problem got shut down without drawing any unwanted eyes, and Maya only added that she really hoped nothing nasty would come back to bite them. Right then the guild door flew open and a man stumbled in, begging for help. He swore something awful had attacked them, and when they pressed him for details, he stammered, was it a magical beast or what? Right when everyone thought they'd finally beaten the forest monster, rumors exploded, something else had stepped in. They spun to Gaston and demanded, "Help us." People erupted into chants of his name, and the weight of everyone counting on him crashed down in his thoughts, because he'd finally realized he never turned into the one everyone despised. He always had this need to be the one they couldn't live without. He craved to be a hero, so he started calling out that everyone should just let him handle it. Then he strode away, and right away people shouted that they'd follow him, promising to show this guy what adventurers really can do. At that exact moment, Mason shoved through the crowd, shouted to the protagonist to come with him, and urgently explained that Tide and Lisa were in trouble. Then he dropped the bombshell. Those two had been turned into statues, and Maya nearly lost her mind seeing them petrified. The protagonist threw out petrification magic like a bomb. Wait, was the terror trashing the city actually a mage, not some beast? Right then the screams hit, "Run, or you'll get turned to stone." Mason started spilling that the villain was hiding in a specific place, and when it came to magic, Abel was the only one he truly trusted. The moment they hit the square, everyone was frozen into stone, and Gaston plus the other adventurers got slammed by the same deadly spell. Mazen spotted a dark-haired kid on the roof and shoved the truth at him. The source is right here. And then Magus went off, screaming about how reckless they were and bragging that they came just to get petrified. The protagonist instantly slammed down his wall of light magic, and the boy barely managed to shove the attack back. Then it hit him. He was a mage. Magus grinned and said this was the perfect moment to have some fun. He'd let the boy get wiped out by the Supreme Demon's terrifying power of Zillamonia. Right then, the kid snapped and unleashed fire magic. Abel and his crew crouched behind Gaston's looming silhouette, and Mazen blurted, "Is this normal, since that stone used to be a person?" Abel shot back, "Yeah, everything's gonna be fine as long as I stay petrified." If he lost his form, he'd come back as something downright terrifying. Mazen didn't even want to picture it, and Abel snapped, "So tell me how I'm supposed to fight him when everyone else is petrified." The Magus pressed him for answers, then demanded he come out and play. So the protagonist blurted that his staff could blast dangerous magic and warned them about demons. From the magic circle he traced for the petrification spell, this looks way too simple. He's convinced it won't snap unless they smash the caster hard enough, and then everyone will snap back to normal. The protagonist said he'd jump at the chance for this role, because that magic circle didn't look ordinary at all. Mason swore he'd be bait, drawing him in so Abel could strike and finish the job, while Maya promised she'd run circles around them, stirring up chaos. He nodded at both plans because it was the safest play they had. Magus snapped, asking if they were so scared they couldn't move, and if they were, he'd come to them himself. Right then, Abel's friends finally decided they were done freezing. They exploded from behind the statue and scattered in every direction, yelling at the top of their lungs. then Magus snapped, asking if they truly thought they could outrun him. While those two had the enemy hooked on the moment, the protagonist slipped behind him and unleashed wind magic. Then a voice screamed at Magus that he was a fool who should have been watching his back. But before he could even react, August of Wind yanked him up into the air, then slammed him back down to the ground. The protagonist snapped, that's it. With only his staff left, there was no way to fix this. Rage started to flare in the Magus's chest as the protagonist snapped, I didn't think I'd survive that fall. He told himself his body had to be insanely tough, then the man pressed him, asking if a Magus would understand exactly what he was feeling. Magus raged that the whole era is rotten to the core, and he couldn't believe the villagers threw him out just because he wouldn't stop studying. The only crack in all this is their world, dead silent, staring down at magic like it's nothing. Then he asked if Abel felt the same. Abel nodded, but in his head he couldn't shake the fear that something had gone wrong back home. Magus said he was done hiding, he wanted the whole world to hear about this. So he shattered the seal that kept Zillamonia trapped, then lined in and demanded Zillamonia join him in soaking the world in horror. Abel guessed Adelheid and this guy were lost too, because nobody seemed to understand a word they said, while he, somehow reincarnated in the Magi world, still couldn't explain it. They're huge in this era, but just like Yamasen, he's got a mentor of his own. Mason immediately snapped at him to stop, don't listen. The protagonist grinned and said, I know, then insisted on testing the staff first before he even tried to break that petrification magic. Right then Zalamonia burst into view, confronting them. She demanded to know why Magus was taking so long to handle those people. Abel's eyes narrowed because, with that kind of magical power, he knew it wasn't just a demon there, it was the one yanking the strings. The girl said it didn't matter because she had nothing better to do, so she decided to mess around with the main character for a while. Maya demanded who he was talking to, and Mason scoffed, was there really someone up in the sky? Abel snapped at them to watch the staff like hawks and make sure the mage never got his hands on it. At that exact moment, Solomania launched the attack, and he answered with real light magic, quietly stunned, wondering if this was magic without spells, and if she was, maybe, a demon. As Abel battled on, his friends grabbed the staff and finally caught sight of the girl. Solomania even blurted that it had been ages since she'd last touched magic, and honestly, that timing was perfect. She thought she was untouchable, lightning fast, then the demon cackled and demanded to know how long she planned to believe she could keep up. Meanwhile, the Magus cackled and told her to beat the hell out of them, barking mistress like it was an order. Then, right on cue, a punch slammed the roof behind him, and the sign crashed down straight onto his head. The protagonist kept swinging, and when Mason stepped in, he told him to just blow up the girl, but the boy snapped back that he would have done it if he even could. If he pulls this off, more villagers get dragged into the wreckage, so there's only one play left, targeted attacks, and Mason swore he got it all. The protagonist said that if he could trap her movement, he'd need to know what he could do to stop her speed, and when he asked, Maya snapped, speed. Like the word itself sparked an idea in her mind. The girl strode up to Abel and demanded to know if she could use it, so Abel pressed her for details too, then he laid out exactly what he thought it was. Right then Zalamonia snapped, grilling him on what happened, how much longer he planned to keep blocking her, and daring him to have some fun, and at that exact second, Abel slammed his totem into existence. The moment the last one showed up, it snapped into attack mode on the girl, then the demon lunged out of the way, stunned to realize it was a totem, and she knew right then it had to be one from the Murring clan. Zalamonia swore it was built from solid wood, bursting with magical power, and if you really wanted the truth, it was carved straight from the bark of the world tree. Right then inspiration hit her, she pulled off a few sharp moves, and before he could even blink, she announced that she'd got him. Right when she thought she'd already won, a fresh totem made of demonic tree bark erupted behind her, and surprise hit her like a punch. At that exact moment, Zalamonia's body got hammered in multiple spots at once. Abel snapped to Maya and shouted for her to raise her staff, then he slammed his demon seal power straight into the fight. Right as she launched into the air, her staff flared and magic surged straight toward her. So fast she shrieked for them to wait, to stop, because she absolutely refused to go back. Right then the staff swallowed the demon whole. The protagonist grimaced, saying it was exhausting. Zalamania shot a look of confusion. Why was someone from the Marin clan here, and what kind of attack was this supposed to be? A jolt hit her. This huge totem was buzzing with the same aura as her old friend, like he'd left a piece of himself behind, and since he vanished right before they even chose to come here, she couldn't shake the thought. Maybe he'd slipped off to somewhere else. The girl begged him not to spill a word. She clocked him as a Marin clan member, but he still couldn't handle it alone. He had to beat her friend, turn him into a totem, and then seal her in place. Abel snapped, so what am I supposed to do with you? The protagonist pointed at the staff and said the essence was sealed inside, and he had 1,000 ways to use it. then she instantly went cold with fear. Right then, the petrification spell finally started to fade, and Maya warned the protagonist about it, only for him to snap that it was bad news. Hazen immediately pressed, asking, "Bad how?" He said the whole Adelheid mess only just happened, and now he's sure everyone's looking at magicians way worse than before. And if they spot him next with the Zalamonia staff in his hand, oh, that'll make it 10 times worse. He swore he didn't want to reveal where it went, but he couldn't lug something that heavy around forever. He said he didn't even need it on him, and that the best move was just to bury it somewhere and be done with it. Right when the spell broke over Gaston, he snapped his head up and demanded where the enemy was. Then a staff came zipping straight at him, and before he could blink, he sputtered, "What is that?" Right after the spell snapped off, everyone surged back into their real bodies and cheered like crazy, until they spotted Gaston clutching the mage's staff in his hands, proving he'd beaten the spellcaster, just like a true hero would. People erupted into thanks, calling him their savior, praising him like he was straight up amazing. He stared at everything unfolding, trying to piece it together, because the moment he stepped into the square, it was like his memory vanished, and now he couldn't shake the chilling thought that something supernatural had just switched on inside him. People started yelling like their hero, the savior, was the only hope, and they began chanting his name nonstop. Maya turned to Abel and asked if he was cool with it, and Abel shot back that they were already building a full-blown cult. Mizzen demanded to know why Gaston would always be stuck as a Class D hero, then fired the next question at the protagonist. What did he do? The kid went silent, and then he started chanting Gaston's name too. So Gaston's fame rocketed across the kingdom of Dinroth, but he couldn't hold on to it for long, and soon he'd be tangled up in one disaster after another. Still, that's a tale for later. Kingdom of Dinrad Asim, at the Library of the Cudal Believers, Maya finally snapped. If he really was trying to bring those evil monsters back like she'd feared, then he'd been a bad man from the start. Abel snapped at her to be quiet and warned that everyone here worships in the Cudal faith, so she better not throw insults at their god. He reminded her that mages wear amulets like a religion, so their mindset is totally different. Then she swallowed her pride and apologized. Welcome to the Library of the Cudal faith in Asim, because Cudal is one of Dinrad's many religions, and unlike the rest, they're insanely tolerant, so when you ask why they've set up shop far from Lamarn, there's a reason. The mage who brought the ancient demon back turned wave after wave of villagers to stone. Then Gaston swooped in and saved the day, earning fame in Lamarn and beyond, until even the king finally heard his name. Queen Charlotte, the fourth ruler of Dinrad, picked him to lead her crack detachment of personal bodyguards. Of course, Gaston's all swagger and zero skills. He's been using that to bury his real achievements, but now everything's gone deadly serious and he can't hide anymore. Good news. He's stacked up plenty of savings, so he's finally ready to walk out and leave. Maya pressed him, curious how he was holding up, and Abel admitted he was certain everyone would spot he'd never served, but he could only pray the queen's rage for being tricked didn't land on him. Gaston could only pray he was still alive, because in his mind, that man was freakishly hard to kill. Queen Charlotte craved Gaston's glory like a weapon, so she could smash her relatives and seize the throne, meaning she couldn't just ditch him even if his power wasn't on her level. Even though Gaston started out clueless, still frozen by the incident that got him promoted to commander of the personal bodyguard squad, his luck and crazy self-confidence kicked in, and he finally moved like the hero everyone swore he was. Maya demanded what they were investigating, and Abel admitted he was hunting for some magical device, one that could blast magical signals farther and make the megaphone's reach explode. The girl demanded to know what he meant, and he told her it wasn't just anything. It was a mobile phone packed with long-range magic power, the exact device that lets people reach and talk to anyone, no matter how far away they are. While he randomly hunted for anything useful for her to do, anything that could keep her busy and reading, she nodded along as Maya agreed with him, and somehow 3 hours just slipped by. Abel replayed everything he'd learned, because the Dree alphabets change their symbols by region and era, yet the spell letters of great mages carry secret ciphers that are brutally hard to decipher, meaning making copies would take forever. Especially since it's a book penned by Altamea, an alchemist who's been dead for 80 years. Sure, the contents are fascinating, but he's convinced Altamea never wrote it for ordinary folks. It feels like a full-on jab at anyone foolish enough to read it. But this alchemist is way too fascinating. If he gets the chance, he'd trade stories with someone his own age, yet after 80 years, only elves or dragons can actually feel okay. At that exact moment, Maya snapped his attention and told him to look, because in her hands was Wigner's diary, filled with the truth about the people of Yaruba. She fired the question right away. Did he remember that research team guy when they went stomping through the ruins of Zeshem? And when she brought it up, he blinked and asked, "You mean the bald old man?" She told me this guy battled the dragon for 3 straight days and nights, then finally crushed it. And yeah, she made it sound unreal, right? Like, can you believe it? And Maya kept watching him the entire time from above. Abel just shook his head, saying it was a 500% exaggeration. After a while, they finally tore themselves away from the library, and the protagonist grumbled that it was just plain annoying they wouldn't let him borrow any books, because the truth was, he'd learned a ton today and was already planning to come back tomorrow. Maya said that with a high adventurer rank, you earn the right to use certain buildings as much as you want, and she told him to stop hiding and start pushing hard to level up his rank. The protagonist snapped that the more famous someone gets, the more trouble crushes them and the less freedom they get, and right then, a girl finally noticed him. She'd already stepped up and greeted them. Shaim, the F-rank adventurer Mason introduced when they finally left Lamarn behind. She said they'd gone to the library, and honestly she couldn't stop talking about how much she loved studying, because the shelves were packed with tough books she couldn't even wrap her head around, though Maya did spot a few adventure stories meant for regular people. She also slipped in the name of a wild book, Wigner's Diary, and the protagonist immediately had the same thought. Was she seriously telling him to read it? Shyam insisted these people really do exist, and she just heard that a weird new organization showed up in Lamarn, so she immediately fired back, asking if he had any clue what they were about. Shyam kept going, saying she'd heard they wore 2 horns and a precious gem right on their heads. Then she snapped her gaze to Maya and insisted, "So where's your precious stone?" The heroes clocked those 2 horns and the gem on his head, and they instantly swore he was from some demon race, so that's why they ended up in Lamarn. Right then Maya started trembling and blurting out how they even ended up here, and it was painfully clear she was in deep trouble. Right after that, the girl crumpled to the ground, knocked out cold, and the protagonist shot forward, shouting her name, panicking for real. In Marin Village, the whole place went up in outrage, because now they'd be cut off from making those leaves for good. They swore mass production was doable, so how in the world were they supposed to go back to Coralco leaves after already trying Able leaves? At the meeting, everyone started whispering about whether those rumors were really flying this fast, and it was crystal clear. Coralco was desperate to claw back its monopoly, and that move was just dumb. Anyone who'd already tasted Abel's leaves wouldn't be able to switch to anyone else. They marched up to the village headman and warned him that if he let this keep going, the unrest would never die down again. Then the headman snapped back that now that it had reached this point, he had no choice. Right then, Chazelle stood deep in the forest, staring in awe at what he was seeing and going, "This is unreal." Every single detail matched Shim Sen's words. The girl said they'd send people to hunt for her brother soon, and right then a boy stepped up beside her. He grilled her about that Shim she won't stop bragging about, and the moment it hit him, he knew something sinister was lurking inside that magic book. But the girl didn't hear a word. She was already picturing her little brother in front of her, playing the main character, begging him to just wait. The heroes crowded around Maya's bedside after she passed out, and when she finally spoke, she told them a chilling tale about demons. Turns out Maya wasn't just some kid, she was the chieftain's daughter of the Doom tribe, and they worshipped their magical forehead crystals so hard that when her relatives saw she didn't have one, they locked her away for ages out of shame. One day Maya heard that the merchant James, just passing through, was coming through town, so she bolted from her room, dove into his cart, and somehow talked him into taking her along, and later, right on the road, she ran into Abel. Maya told her friends she was always stuck alone in the village. Her family treated her like she was nothing. The kids mocked her as Crystal Less and refused to be her friends, and they kept her locked out from going outside freely. Maya had always ached to step into the big outside world and find someone who'd stay by her side, so when she finally met Mr. James and Abel, and they treated her with real kindness, her heart practically lit up. Maya grins and tells Abel that ever since she met him, chaos has pretty much followed her everywhere, but at least it's still better than being stuck at home, where it feels like she isn't living at all, just going through the motions. Abel studies his friend with a heavy stare, because deep down he's always believed Maya is scared to death of being alone. Maya kept tearing through her painful past. Ever since childhood, she barely ever spoke to her father, and she'd always felt that cold rage rolling off him. She figured he saw her as a family disgrace, so it hit her hard to believe he was actually the one searching for her. Maya, visibly rattled, veers off the main story and blurts that she gets it. Abel only stayed with her for the money, but it doesn't touch her at all. She just wants to keep riding through life with him. Maya grips the blanket so tight her fists ache, her hands trembling as she blurts out, "I don't want to go home." Abel stays silent, and the whole moment turns razor-sharp with tension. Abel can't stop thinking about his father. Back in his past life, the man barely cared, and in this one he smothered him with love, but no matter what, he never once stepped in to block Abel's plans. Abel yells Maya's name and she whips her head up, startled. Then Abel bluntly tells her, if your home village feels that awful, you can just forget it. Abel breaks out in an upbeat grin, saying that if Maya's father comes after them, they'll just keep running, side by side, traveling together, while Maya stares at Abel, choked up, tears finally spilling over. Shyam wipes away her tears, swears she'll help the heroes too, and asks what they're planning. Abel fires back that he and Maya stand out like a sore thumb, and that's exactly why the pursuers found them so fast, since the crowd was packed with witnesses. Abel tells them to get out fast and hunt for a quiet hiding spot, but he insists on squeezing in one last look through the city library books, while Maya keeps stumbling over frantic apologies, begging him not to blame her. Shyam is lost in thought too, as the heroine pushes the idea that Maya and Abel need somewhere they can vanish for a while, then keep right on digging into magic research. The scene slams into a forest right on the edge of the Marlene tribe's settlement, and suddenly, boom, a huge crowd swarms in, filling the trees with noise. The whole tribe is buzzing with loud chatter. Marlene's people have decided to send a search party for Abel. Right in the middle of the clearing, their leader stands tall, staring at everyone like the next move is moments away. Because only Abel knew how to grow tobacco for incense, the tribe tore up the ancient ban and let everyone leave the village. Now they're buzzing with talk about the wild world out there, but their hearts keep snapping back to one question. Will they get Abel back alive? Abel's father throws one last farewell to his wife. She'll stay behind in the settlement. Then Gina grabs her husband and daughter and orders them to stay on their guard. Giselle grips the magical tome like it's her lifeline, then tells her mother not to fret, because they're bringing Abel back for sure. A chubby kid stares at Abel's family, then whips around to look Philo straight in the eye. The boy leans into Philo and asks if Giselle seems off. Then the girl fires back and demands what exactly feels strange. So he says Giselle talks to her book sometimes, and lately she's changed in ways that can't be ignored. Philo tells them the book was their grandfather's and it's been sitting in the library all this time, and once Abel vanished, his sister started grinding at magic every day to chase his path, so Philo doesn't find her crushed, lost mood one bit surprising. The boy refuses to believe it's real, so Philo snaps at Abel, then swears she'll spill everything, especially after he freaked out the whole village and vanished without a word. The woman whips around to the elder and asks, "Are you really sure this is the right call?" And the elder immediately frowns. The woman remembers the villagers are shattering a centuries-old taboo to hunt down Abel, and the elder is convinced this choice is the only right one. Demons are swarming the western gate of Romano, the trading city under the kingdom of Dimrath, and one of them barrels up to the chieftain, gasping out the latest intel. The demon blurts that Maya is headed for a sim by cart. The chieftain snaps back that a trek on foot takes 2 whole days, and the subordinate adds the wild detail: she's riding with a white-haired kid from the Marlin tribe. The demon chieftain snaps his gaze away, clearly baffled, then demands an answer. How could a tribe that never once left its own land dare to shatter an ancient covenant? He barks orders for the squad to march to a sim, because demons are already crawling through the forest. On the road, a man slams to a stop in front of them and declares, "You can't get in, it's a city guard." The demons spot a few guards, and the guards warn them, if they want to go on, they'll have to take a detour. A monster tore through this spot the day before, and now the cliff is wobbling and might collapse. Repairs won't be done for about a week. The demon barrels on anyway, until the guards snap back and warn that if they don't stop, they'll be hauled in for rebellion. The demons just sneer that Dimrath's laws don't bind them. Rage simmers in the guard's chest because the travelers won't listen, so he snatches his spear. Then the demon shoots out a hand, staring at the man from beneath his hood with the same furious heat. The guard's totally lost, then the demon snaps onto the spear's shaft, yanks it with brutal force straight back to himself. The guard slams onto the ground with a brutal crash and gets launched backward, while everyone else stares at the demon in shocked silence. A thunderous roar rips through the gorge, and the guards snap their heads around in panic. A giant boulder barrels down the cliff, and everyone freezes in pure terror as it crushes the silence, while the demons shout for their leader. Right when the stone gets close enough to strike, the demon leader explodes upward into the air, clenching his fist tight like he's about to end it. An explosion tears through the air, rock fragments blast every which way, and the guards snap their heads upward, stunned into silence. The demon leader crumples to the ground, and a cloud of dust erupts around him like a shockwave. His hood slips off and boom, horns and a crystal shine on his forehead, and the demon clamps his hand tight, promising that he'll find Maya for sure. On a calm day in the city, everyone just keeps moving and heads to the market, like nothing could go wrong, while outside the walls, Abel and Maya are out in the fields, working hard as the quiet hums around them. Someone shouted Abel's name, and the young man snapped his head up. A man in a tunic strides up. He's the feudal lord, and Abel greets him with, "Good morning." The Lord nods and says he heard from the butler that Abel and Maya slipped out to work the fields. Abel tells him he's digging into the secrets of the soil, because the feudal lord swore his land was plagued by nasty magical plants, so Abel decided to study what he could do to fix it. The feudal lord stares at Abel, shocked, and blurts out, "So you actually know botany beyond magical beast hunting?" Abel freezes for a second, then admits he studied plants back home. He just isn't the one people call when magical beasts are on the menu. The feudal lord squints and asks Abel if he's really sure, because the reward and promotion for a magical beast are no small deal. Abel shoots back instantly that none of that matters to him, same as he said before. He says it's all he needs, just a secluded spot to spend the night. Following Scheim's advice, Abel and Maya rolled into Feud Farch, a city sitting out on the western outskirts. For the past month and a half, magical beasts have slammed their way across the road to the city, and the outside world's signal is completely gone, no messages, no contact. A massive three-headed serpent coils in front of Abel, and this moment hits like a flashback from the fight. The serpent fell, and when Abel crushed the magical creatures, the feudal lord and the villagers rushed in, bowing with reverent gratitude to Abel and Maya. Abel handed the townsfolk 3 of the serpent's heads, then straight up turned down the reward, while the heroes demanded the whole victory stay secret, and in exchange they asked the city for shelter, because the thief of Farge lies far beyond the horizon. Even after he wiped out the magical beasts, trade in the city was basically dead, and Abel still marched right up to the feudal lord and demanded research materials and a proper place to work. The lord nodded, swearing everything would be ready by evening, because this city would do anything for the guy saving their lands. Abel sprawls back with his hands behind his head, says life support is set up, even though he never imagined they'd get stuck out in the middle of nowhere, while Maya keeps apologizing, swallowing the blame for all the chaos she started. Abel whips around and tells Maya, "Don't say that, I'm fine living right here." He explains that he struck up ties with the local feudal lord, and now he's got a real base and a home, so he can keep his research going in peace. Abel leans in and says the local soil is way more interesting than anyone expects. It's totally different from the dirt back home, warped by magic, and if he can figure out what's really causing the crop to fail, he'll unlock brand new knowledge he can't get anywhere else. Maya admits she didn't realize Abel cared about farming, but Abel snaps back, "It's farming." And then he blurts out that the magic he studied is built on using natural objects, pushing on to explain medicinal herbs. Maya snaps that she still won't understand a thing, but she can't deny it feels good that Abel finally found something he loves. Abel agrees. The heroes press on, grinning, and Abel bursts out that he's gonna unleash fresh magic from the wild countryside, like a whole new wave is coming. Out in the fields, one man leans over and asks his buddy if that wandering mage feels especially creepy to him. The second guy blinks in confusion and says the mage already took down a 3-headed dragon. Outside the trading city of Romanu in the kingdom of Demart, the Marden tribe slumps on the ground, drained and worn out. Then one of them gasps, "The ban is still in effect. Anyone who dares to leave the village will regret it fast," at least, that's what the tribesmen clutch in their hearts as they sprint away from magical beasts. They also remember getting ambushed by every kind of monster in the city, only to realize it wasn't some beast at all, it was people, just wearing a whole different face. The warriors are wiped out. One of them snaps that he wants to go home and misses his mother's soup, because all they've had lately is rotten leaves from the dwarf tobacco plant, and Abel's father keeps trying to fire them back up. Philo snaps with irritation at how pathetic the adults are, and the girl remembers that Giselle was the only one brave enough to deal with the magical creatures on the road, nothing shocking, since Giselle is Abel's sister. Philo is furious that the elders dumped even the info-gathering duty on the youngest squad members. Then came the reports that Abel was spotted around here, but the search turned up nothing. Now the whole squad is scrambling to find out from Giselle whether Abel has finally slipped out of the city. Giselle plunges deeper into the forest, then stops at the edge like she owns the shadows, takes out a magic book, and casts a spell that tears the air open. She's staring at the squad's sinking morale, all because they lost track of Abel, and if they can't fix this soon, they'll have to turn back. Right when she's trying to decide what to do next, a voice suddenly erupts from the book. A loud voice crackles in, "Your squad's closing in on Abel's spot." The book tells Giselle to hang back a little longer, then swears a sign will pop up soon and point the way. Giselle freezes, stammers, and finally nods. Above the dark forest, the moon climbs higher and higher. Field of the Feud, where the Farge battle claims the territory. Rain lashes down like bullets as Abel shields his eyes with his hand, yelling that he has to hurry, now. Rain pounds down like it's trying to erase the pumpkin cuttings he spent forever tending, and Maya yells at him that if it comes back he won't get sick, while the men in the field just stand there, clueless about what that magician is even doing. Abel raises a glowing magical totem and Maya blurts, "Where are you heading?" Abel climbs straight inside, grinning, and tells her he's going to break up the rain clouds. Abel rockets into the sky, snaps his fingers, hurls a spell, and forces the wind, pure magic, to rip the clouds apart. The clouds vanish in a blink. The peasants beam up at the bright, clear sky. Then one of them blurts that the magician is dangerous. Abel just laughs, drops to the ground, and promises that nothing is impossible for him, while Maya stares at him, stunned. The very next day, Abel got hit with a vicious cold. He crumpled into bed, couldn't lift a finger, and his whole body was soaked through with sweat. Abel begs Maya for forgiveness and blurts that he's dying. Maya is horrified. Then the visiting doctor snaps back that he's just got a cold. Abel can't believe it, he feels awful, and the doctor tells him, "If you're not better tomorrow, I'll hit you with more medicine." Then the doctor urges rest and warns him to stay out of the fields, and when the news lands, Maya bursts into happy tears, convinced Abel is finally going to pull through. Abel sprawls in bed, spiraling over his pumpkins, while Maya slides in close, soothing him and promising it'll all be okay. She even tells him what the locals revealed. A totem from the world tree stands guard over the field. Abel drifts into a peaceful sleep while Maya conks out with her head hanging over the edge of a nearby chair, and in her half-dream she mumbles, "Everything's going to be okay." Suddenly, a shimmering dot flickers into existence right on the girl's forehead. Magic streams swirl through the room, and while Abel sleeps, he's totally lost, until his dreams sharpen into crystal-clear thoughts. A magical stream gushed right over his bed and shot straight out the window, like the universe was pranking him with pure magic. Magic stretches like a glowing thread out past the house, beyond the whole city, and all the way to some unknown end, until it snaps into a bright, shining target hanging in the sky. Both the demons and Giselle spot the same symbol slicing through the night sky, and they stare at it, stunned to the core. Morning hits and Abel groans in disgust from his bed while the magician snaps awake, trying to piece together the chaos. Then he swings out of bed, only to find his thoughts totally blank, until one sharp idea finally strikes him. Abel shoots out of bed and yells that he can't just sit around doing nothing. Then Maya jolts awake. He bursts out the room, throws on his clothes in a rush, and tells Maya he wants to test the magic seal from his dream. Then, with a worried look, she asks if he's really feeling better. Beyond feudal Lord Farge's reach, the mountains hide a whole new state, while Maya stands there, getting slammed by savage winds that magic is whipping up. The girl freezes, eyes bulging wide, and her mouth just won't open. Abel clasps his hands with pure joy because he finally nailed the seal. He tells Maya the idea hit him in a dream, like his sleep somehow breeds genius, and as the words land, Maya trembles and blurts that the feudal lord could be furious. Abel keeps firing off the need for a solid excuse and a killer name for the tech, while the demons stare ahead at a towering pillar of magic looming in the distance. The leader plants himself on a rocky slope with his squad, and then boom, he declares he's finally tracked down Maya. The demon shoots a tense stare up at the sky. Outside the city walls, the men are hammering away in the fields. Then one spots smoke and snaps, "You see that too?" The other squints and says it looks like it's rolling down from the mountains, and right as they're talking, a bunch of strangers close in on them. "Brace yourself, these aren't just monsters, they're demons." Maya yells that the feudal lord will blow his top the moment he sees every fallout from the seal, but Abel grins and promises he'll fix it all in a bit, thanks to a construction totem. He smirks like it's nothing and tells Maya to grab breakfast first, casually admitting he hadn't eaten a thing while he was sick. Maya agrees, then she freezes, catching something lurking in her peripheral vision. From atop a cliff, the heroes stare down at the city lights, and Maya grins, saying that even though it's early morning, it's way louder than it should be today. The heroes get called in, and a peasant rushes up to Maya and Abel, breathless, saying they've got guests. Then he turns to his buddy and checks, "Were you asking about Maya?" The demons are closing in fast on the heroes, and the end is coming with every step. Maya's body locks up in pure terror. The demon leader stares at the girl, brow knotted in fury, and puffs his lips as Maya stutters under the weight of it all. The girl cowers behind Abel and blurts out the demon father's name. Abel whips around, stunned. The demon growls out the daughter's name like a curse. He steps right up to Maya and shouts for her to come home. Maya doesn't answer, then Abel snaps his hand up and slams himself in the demon's way. He corners the demon, demanding what it's after and why it chose to throw away his own daughter to her fate before starting this chase. Abel points out that Maya refuses to go back home and snarls at the demon to stay away, but Maya's eyes lock on her father with pure terror. Then the demon leans in and asks whether Abel really belongs to Marlene's clan. The demon snarls that Maya's power is finally starting to wake up, but Abel has no clue what he's talking about, so the demon shoves in and demands he get out of the way. Maya's father creeps closer to the heroes as Abel slams down a magical seal, and fires off a teleportation spell. A colossal totem crashes down right in front of the heroes. The demons stared at him, shocked. Abel yanks Maya's hand and shouts for her to climb into the totem. Then they both scramble inside as the thing rockets up, soaring over the forest. It rockets across the sky for what feels like forever, tearing through the clouds on a mission. The totem slams into the forest floor, hiding among the trees. Abel hauls himself out and Maya follows. Then the magician blurts that they might not be able to deal with the demons at all. Right then, every single one of them snaps still in total shock. Maya's father rockets past the lag and slams his magic down, clearing the path for the heroes as he catches up. Abel couldn't believe his eyes when he saw what was happening. The demon rockets past the distance and catches up to them. Abel's mind races with dread because he knows they're about to fight, and it's coming fast. The magician leans in and asks Maya straight up, does he stand a chance against her father, or does she still want to go home? And right there, the poor girl's eyes are about to spill over. Maya yells she's not going home, and Abel snaps a spell, ordering the earth to tremble. A brutal explosion erupts, chunks of earth blast straight into the demons, and a bunch of them get knocked off their feet instantly. Maya's father slams his hand up to shield himself. Abel hurls the totem Asher straight into the fight. The totem slams into the demon leader, and he barely scrapes out a dodge at the last second. Abel's jaw drops when Maya's father starts tracking the movements of Asher's totem like it's nothing. The demon keeps grinding against the totem, refusing to back down. He slams his fists into the ground with a brutal roar, deep cracks rip through the topsoil, and jagged claws of earth and stones explode upward, then Ashura rockets into the sky. Abel slams into the ground and summons earth into a brutal wall to block his enemies. A colossal wall of packed earth thrusts up in front of the totem. Maya's father absolutely drills him with a few savage blows, dropping him fast. The totem lunges from behind and smashes into the demon. Maya's father snaps around and slashes his way through Usura's lightning-fast punches. Above Abel, 5 massive magical spheres floated in the sky, glowing like they were about to unleash something huge. He snapped his fingers and cast the spell, Heed in Magametal. Maya's father gets struck as the spear crashes down on him. The smoke finally thins, and Abel stares at where the demon used to stand, his gut churning as he asks himself if he pushed too far. Maya's father bursts out of a rolling cloud of dust and tiny stones, like the ground itself just spit him back into the fight. Abel and the demon lock eyes again, face to face, while Maya's father insists that the Marling clan mage, though her family never once left their village, somehow knows every secret of the magical arts. Abel hurls his power back into action and summons the totem again. Ashura lunges from behind, reaching for the demon with pure intent. The demon whips around, burning with fury. He smashes the totem with a blaring battle cry. The second his hand touched it, the totem shattered in two and crumbled to pieces. Abel stares down his opponent and pure fear claws at his chest. Maya locks eyes with her father, staring him down like the answers are hiding behind his expression. Abel shouts the totem's name, and the demon looms right above the fallen Usura. Abel snaps his hands together and summons a savage gust of wind. A massive tornado rips through the sky right in front of Maya's father. After a while, the tornado finally tears apart and dies down, and the demon glares at the empty space in front of him. Maya and Abel are gone. The heroes sprint through the forest while Abel grieves over how brutally strong Maya's father was. Maya rushes to her friend and apologizes for smashing his totem, and Abel demands to know one thing. Did Maya's father buff his attacks with magic, or else how could he tear through that magical tree so effortlessly? Maya claims the totem was carved with an ancient technique, handed down for generations, and Abel fires back that his mentor had perfected that very method. The wooden doll technique is a brutal combat move that cranks up your strength by pouring magical power through a totem. At least, that's what it does when you can pull it off, and only a small handful in the Marling clan have truly mastered it since it's an insanely advanced art. Abel explains that pulling off this technique demands razor-fine control of magical power, all guided through an amulet, and because it's so brutal and complex, it was only handed to a tiny circle of people. Then Abel drops the bombshell. He tried to master it too and still failed. Maya can't believe what she's hearing. Abel figured this would be the shortcut to power, but after his futile tries he got knocked into bed for a whole week, writhing with muscle pain, and the mage tells him straight up. Body enhancement doesn't work like regular magic at all. Abel starts digging. If he figures out how the Doom Clan handles their power-ups, he might finally spot their weakness, so he grills Maya. Do you folks have any special magical tools? But Maya can't remember a thing. Maya claims the clan's forehead crystals help them feel spirits floating in the air, then asks, can that kind of magic be trained and controlled through meditation? Maya rushes in to apologize. She doesn't have that kind of crystal, and she can't give Abel a better answer, while Abel starts piecing it together, thinking she was probably barred from using magic back then. He can't stop wondering why it happened. Abel even guesses it's because of contempt or because they're missing the crystal, and Maya just drops her gaze to the ground, looking crushed. Abel tells everyone that if crystals can sniff out energy in the air that fast, then it explains why Maya's father tracked them down so quickly, because those magical instruments, like their totems, carry a special kind of aura. Abel rushes to apologize to Maya, admitting his magic is what gave away their location. Maya snaps back that none of it is his fault. Maya blurts that she never imagined she'd get tailed that relentlessly, and she can't figure out why the Doom clan would even bother. Abel just shrugs and says if they stay put, someone will find them in no time. Abel stews over their next move as Ashura lies shattered, and the demons start to blow past the heroes in sheer speed. Yet if Abel casts even a single spell, their position will get exposed. Right in the middle of the road, the heroes suddenly stop cold. Maya's expression hardens as she stares straight ahead. Her father storms back out to meet them again. Abel locks eyes with the demon, jaw set with pure resolve, then blurts out that he's giving up, because with how he's standing right now, he knows he can't beat him. The demon goes silent and Abel chimes in that he respects Maya's choice. Then rage starts to burn in the demon's eyes, but he still doesn't say a word. Maya pulls out a tiny blade and clenches it tight in her hands. She screams at her father, claws in the air, demanding he hear her. She's not going back, not ever. She'd rather die right here than return. The demon mutters that Maya never could pull it off, then shrugs and decides to drag the whole drama into the open. Abel roars at him that he's the worst father on earth because he brought his daughter here. Abel keeps at it, still butting heads with Maya's father, so the mage snaps that the Duma clan never cared what she thought, and that when they trapped her inside, loneliness swallowed her whole until all she wanted was a way to touch the outside world, while the demon bares his teeth and scowls with rage. The hero leaned in and admitted the wild truth. Somehow he had two fathers. One never bossed his life around, and the other wouldn't stop nagging Abel to stay home and toughen his body, but Abel shrugged it off and did whatever he wanted anyway, so he just took the pressure and endured. Abel fires back at Maya's father, insisting that if the demon kept his daughter caged, going back to that house would be death for her, so if she truly wants to resist, the only choice he claims she has is to end her own life. Maya presses her blade right to her own throat. Abel snatches the magic wand and vows, if Maya won't find the courage on her own, I'll do it for her, because his spell hits faster than that demon can even move. Father snarls and lashes out, cursing Abel before charging forward in a fury. A while back, the heroes cooked up a scheme. Abel urged Maya to put on a little show and exploit the one thing her father couldn't hide, his weakness, because he needed her safe and sound. Abel handed Maya that blade and said, if you can push her father's buttons, he'll lose focus. Then the heroes will turn his own temper into their weapon. Abel snaps the ground back into shape, summoning earth into a solid wall to block his way. A magical seal snaps into existence right in front of him, and an earthen wall slams up between Abel and the demon. Maya's father slams straight into the wall and obliterates it on impact. Abel snaps his will into the ground, and the earth starts trembling on command. The demon's feet slam down, and the ground underneath them splits with a furious crack. Dust whips into a frantic storm around him, and the demon's instincts snap. Then it spins around, sensing something new. Another totem crashes into the vortex. Abel pulled a totem straight from the world tree, poured his magic into it, and then summoned it through teleportation like it was nothing. In Abel's plan, once the demon loses focus, it'll mistake the totem's energy for Abel's own aura. Abel lifts his hands to slam out yet another spell, and he summons the earth spirits, right here, right now. The magician roars an order to the spirits, snatch Maya's father, and the next second they burst up from the ground, swarming the demon from all sides. Maya's father gets swallowed by thick, crackling strands of raw energy. He's trapped like freedom is right there, but he just can't pry it open. Abel totally rewired his Harem mega metal technique and remade it into a magical whip. He names the new technique Abel's whip on the spot. He snaps his wand and the whip clamps tight around Maya's father, then he whips it with one brutal swing, launching the demon crashing through the forest. Abel strides up to the fallen demon leader of the Doom clan, Merzef, and fires off a single, burning question. Abel blurts out, why am I chasing Maya? The demon stays eerily quiet, and Maya stares at her father, terrified but dying to know what comes next. Abel tells them they swapped the jewels Maya grabbed and bolted out with, back when she escaped to a magical tree in Romana's trading city, while a totem floats above the mage's shoulder, and the demon suddenly clenches, glaring. Abel claims those demons are tracking the magic trail of Ashura, the wooden doll Maya's father shattered. Then the demon snarls back that he and the magician have nothing left to talk about. Suddenly his face twists in terror, the demon shrieks, and a glowing magical field starts to snap into place around him. Abel can't believe he still has the strength to fight it off. Merzef yanks himself free from the bonds and barrels straight at Abel, who whips into action to summon a demon-catching whip. Merzef gets yanked by the whip once more, crashing down on his knees right in front of Abel. Abel is shaking too. After finally catching his breath, he blurts out, "Where does Merzev even pull that strength from? His bones are shattered to pieces." The demon croaks and demands, "Abel, did you unlock your power to control metal through Maya?" Abel snaps his whip and boom, it reshapes on the spot from metal itself, and only someone with total mastery of magic could pull off a spell like that. Abel is totally lost and the demon rubs it in. He's saying he witnessed a sign in the sky the night before, and it was the power of Maya, the very thing the prophecy warned about. Merzif reckons Abel likely realized he could tap into Maya's magical power, but the demon has no clue what the magician is really hunting for. Abel asks again, completely baffled, and Maya whips around to face her father. The three just stare at each other, frozen in stunned silence. Then Maya's father leans in and demands, "So you really don't know anything?" The demon kicks things off with his tail. 4,000 years back, the guardian god Kudur clashed with Silphamame. The evil sky god smashed him and trapped him on the moon, then crashed into a deep slumber just to recover. Abel blurts, "Why are you telling us this legend, Merzith?" And the demon smirks, "Right now, only the elves of the heavenly kingdom know the secret of their clan." He lays it out, Doom Clan. They're the descendants of a race forged straight by the heavenly god himself, and Maya and Abel stare at him, stunned. Silpheim forged the Doom Clan to fight the god Kudur, but legends claim the celestial god got locked away on the moon. Merzef reveals that right before Silpheim got sealed, he blasted the clan's ancestors into this land and stuffed their bodies inside a living grimoire. Abel blurts out, "So what in the world is a living grimoire?" Merzev leans in and snaps that the living grimoire is Maya herself. The god Kudur who Silpheim shaped let the people of Doom survive on Dimrath, and the clans swore their loyalty to him forever, but even the elves have no idea. Merzef then drops the bombshell. The sky god is hoarding power, getting ready to be reborn on the moon. Only a handful of the Doom clan even know this prophecy. In 2,000 years, a descendant of the Doom tribe will rise as the sky god's ultimate weapon. Abel slams in right then, cutting him off mid-sentence. He grills Merzef, demanding how he even heard the evil god is back and where god Kudur is hiding. Merzef hesitates, then remembers a lunar festival everyone should know about, even the Marling clan, shut away from the outside world. The moon festival hits once every 500 years when the moon swings closest to Earth. Right then, the magic inside every living thing surges to a higher gear, and countries all over the world celebrate it, no matter their religion. Abel remembers the festival happened 6 months back, and Maya nods. She heard the whole town gearing up for the holiday when trade finally picked back up. The demon leans in and fires a question at the heroes. What do they have to say about the rising swarm of magical creatures tearing through the country? Abel and Maya stare back, utterly baffled. Abel can't forget the night magical creatures stormed Romana, because that's when he first met Maya, and when Abel Bon and the demon Zalamonia showed up too. Even the mage admits it. Disasters caused by creatures like that haven't hit in a full 100 years. Maya still remembers Nalgarn, how he slammed shut the trade routes and stranded everyone headed for the Farge Fifth. Merzif tells them the Doom clan owes the creator god nothing, because when he comes back, chaos will tear the lands apart, so they had to lock Maya away. Merciv admits the Doom had no idea how strong the barrier their shamans built would be, but they knew they had to keep Maya hidden, at least until the lunar festival year was here, so Maya demands to know why her father never told her any of it. Maya erupts in rage and screams that if she'd only known this sooner, she wouldn't have despised her own family and she'd never have bolted into the night, while Merzef just stays silent. Merzef still remembers cradling little Maya in his arms, and he tells how, 15 years ago, when he finally realized his own child was dangerous, he knew as the leader he had to erase that threat to the world, but his heart wouldn't let him. He spits out that bitter truth, leaving his daughter alive was his weakness, laid bare for everyone to see. Maya's eyes widen in terror as she realizes she has to become a weapon to bring the evil god back. Just a day back in the dark forest and a mountain pass from the Farch domain, a voice erupted from the grimoire and told Giselle, Abel's sister, that the bright sign blazing in the sky is a good omen. Giselle snaps to the truth, her brother's out there on the thief's land, and she rushes to the book, telling it she can feel his magical power nearby. Grimoire breaks into laughter and blurts out that he has no idea why everything's going so perfectly his way. Yasim, the spirit trapped in that book, is about to take over Abel and the girl too. Giselle beams, convinced Abel still has one thing on his mind: going home. She stomps up to the cliff's edge, tilts her face to the sky, and declares she's already on her way to Abel. Maya suddenly understands the truth. She's destined to become the weapon that brings the evil god back to life. The girl can't stop questioning whether her father's words are true, because the very person standing there is the one destined to bring disaster to the whole country, while Maya stares at Abel's magic and wonders if the power of the heavenly god has been shaping it this entire time, right there in her presence. Maya stared at Abel, fear punching through her, and she couldn't stop herself from asking, what was he thinking? Was he stunned that he'd just cast a spell under the sway of an evil deity, and would he try to keep a distance from her now? The girl squeaks out her words, voice trembling as she faces the magician. Then with a dark, grim stare, he snaps her name like it means trouble. Just a heartbeat later, his face lights up, pure delight, and Abel blurts out to Maya that she's absolutely incredible. Maya didn't see this coming, so she freezes in silence, utterly baffled, while her father is just as clueless, trying to figure out why Abel is acting like this. Abel turns to the demon and demands answers, because if Merzef's right, then Maya isn't just important. She's the key that lets the heavenly god sling magic through his followers once that seal finally snaps. Abel says that as a mage, he never just sat around. Whenever Maya was there, he cooked up crushing spells, and he goes on to admit he used to believe the best ideas only hit when you're sick, until the moment he realized the whole story behind Abel's ball began with that sickness too. Abel joyfully realizes, thanks to Maya, he'd been using his power without even knowing it, and in that foggy mindset the god's power slipped into him way too easily. He then turns to thank Maya, while she's still stunned by how he reacted. Maya grabs Abel and asks if he's scared the prophecy coming true means she'll unleash disaster on this country. Abel shoots back that it's wildly exciting, and he refuses to let something this huge slip past him. Abel clamps both hands on Maya's shoulders and urgently begs her not to leave. Tears surge in Maya's eyes as her father's expression hardens into pure darkness. Abel Frismerzef went, since everybody's finally clued in, there's no reason left to hate each other anymore. The magician promises he'll protect Maya too, then calls Merzef father, and Merzef snaps with fury, snarling that he'll never be addressed like that, while Maya's cheeks instantly burn red. Merzef leans in and demands, so, do you've got a plan yet, Abel? 20 minutes later, the heroes slam into the Farge estate, and right away, a worried feudal lord rushes them, panicking as he grabs Abel and demands, what is going on? A feudal lord demands to know what happened to that nearby mountain. Abel freezes, clueless. Then one peasant points straight at the demons lurking behind the mage. The estate's man steps up and calls the demons suspicious guests, and the good-natured man just smiles like, I invited you. The feudal lord and every soul on the estate stare at the magician, stunned into deadly silence. Abel proudly introduces Merzef as his agricultural specialist, the one he begged to help crack the mystery behind the crop failure. Then the feudal lord, totally baffled, blurts out, wait, why were there explosions in the field? Abel bursts into laughter and quickly apologizes for not warning the feudal lord about the carving work, and the magician chimes in that he didn't know exactly when the guest would show up, because he's always buried in work. One of the peasants won't let it go. He mutters that something feels off, and he swears the moment Merzef met Abel, it looked like Merzef just snapped and lunged at them. Abel panics, blurted out that he wanted to dig a deep cut into the soil to test its composition, because ever since he arrived, he couldn't stop fidgeting. Then he calls Merzef teacher, while the demon just stays dead silent. Abel rushes in, apologizes to everyone for the mess, and vows he'll fix every ruin with magic, but the feudal lord snaps back that these liberties won't be tolerated, no matter that Abel is the one who saved these lands, and Abel swears he'll start working right away. The magician decides to kick things off by forging a magical tool meant for restoration. Abel stalks up to a tree ripped from the earth, drags his fingers over the rough bark, and instantly knows it's drained of life. And that's when he realizes just how lucky Marlene's village is to have an environment like that. Merzef whips around to Abel and demands, can we really delay this, even if the answer has to be found the instant possible, especially when you said you're staying in the feudal lord's lands for a while? The demon grins and says that while Abel keeps stalling, the day the heavenly god will finally awaken is creeping closer. If a place isn't guarded by a barrier, like Dum's village backed by the sea otter, sooner or later magic spills into the sky and a seal appears overhead. That's when the sky god's underlings spot it. The devil smirks and warns that they shouldn't stick around. Abel lunges at Merzef, firing questions like bullets, what's the clan barrier and who's supposed to explain how it works? Merzef tries to shove the kid back. The demon pulls out a hexagonal artifact and shoves it into Abel's hands. Abel drags back an ancient relic from the village, then once it's back on clan territory, its power explodes. He studies the magical object up close, hunting every secret in it. Abel tells everyone the relic's power won't be strong enough to forge a real barrier. He says a weak one would get shattered in seconds by a mage like him, so Merdzef snaps, then what do we do? And Abel admits, honestly, I don't know much about barrier magic. He grips the relic and blurts that he needs answers fast, so Abel pushes him to head back to the clan's village to dig up research, and he turns to the Doom clan, demanding they help wipe out the area. Maya barrels in to help too. Abel shouts that she must assist him in crafting the World Tree Totem. Then Abel snaps off a teleport spell, and a glowing magical seal with a tiny totem materializes right in front of him, while Merzef jolts and twitches toward Abel. The demon slams to a halt and blocks the magician's path. Maya and Abel stare at him, stunned. Morzev says he felt power like a wood golem lurking somewhere ahead, and she quickly fires off a question to Abel. Are the barrier artifact and the totem forged from the same material? Abel is stunned when the artifact's core turns out to be the World Tree. He totally missed it at first, since the relic was battered beyond recognition. The mage snaps, asking if the seal blazing in the sky was what led Merzef straight to them, and then he warns them. If that seal showed up because Abel's reaction to Maya's power, they should have been discovered 2 months ago. The heroes remember this. When Abel was trapped in that hotel room with a fever, he accidentally scrawled a massive magic circle, and before he even realized it, the nearby Maya's power swallowed him. Merzef shoots back that 2 months ago. Maya's pursuers never spotted a single clue. Abel figures out the World Tree isn't just growing, it's throwing up a barrier to block the world. Maya says last night felt like nothing happened, and Abel shoots back that it might be because the heroes were too far away. Back then, the wooden totem was watching the fields from a distance. Abel explains that the totem was made to vanish from evil creatures, basically a living barrier, and if the World Tree's barrier boost works like that, then the totem's barrier power should level up too. A mage mulls it over and says this is a secret worth digging into, and Maya just stares at the totem, eyes wide, completely hooked. With her eyes blazing, the girl swears that meeting Abel was written in the stars, because once they tracked down the World Tree in Romano together, Maya bought it, and Abel carved her a totem, and Abel just snaps back that he never handed Maya a single coin. Merzef demands they start researching the World Tree right now. April snaps back that he still has unfinished business to handle first. Then, out of nowhere, Merzef suddenly feels it. He blares out a commanding shout, forcing the demons to swarm in. Merzef snaps that an evil force is closing in on them. Finally, Maya's father reveals that last night's sign didn't just summon demons, it also dragged in servants of God, and Maya and Abel stare at him, terrified, while Merzef snaps that the creatures are closing in. They shout Abel's name, roaring, "Brother," like it's a command. Giselle bursts out of the forest toward the heroes, and when Abel hears her voice, he whips around, spotting his sister, and locks up in pure shock. An unknown hero opens up about his life, right from the moment he was born, when the first thing he saw was a blazing light, and he instantly knew it came from his creator. Silfheim, the god who raised the hero like a father, was gone, and then bam, storming thoughts slammed into the hero's head. Silfheim was sealed away, snatched by another god, and just waiting for the perfect moment to be reborn. The hero got boxed in by a swarm of shadows, so many that it felt like they outnumbered him, and they closed in like older brothers, guarding him from the dark. Father ordered them to drop to earth and whip up pure chaos for the lunar festival, and to snatch the grimoire too, because these creatures hit the ground to make sure the invasion ran flawless on Father's birthday. Turns out the hero didn't have the same power as his brothers. While they tore reality open, one after another, unleashing magical beasts and chaos, he just didn't have the strength, so all he could do was slip into weakened minds and steer them. He tried to tame a terrifying magical beast, but it came for his life and almost swallowed him whole, and after he finally learned from a weak mage, the hero still got nearly killed when he was spotted. The entity was desperate to prove to its father that it mattered, and that hunger pushed it forward. Then it set its sights on one more goal, to show its brothers it wasn't any worse than them. During its endless wanderings, the entity finally stumbled upon Abel, lurking at a distance, silently realizing Abel was exactly the kind of mage it desperately needed. Abel felt like the kind of magician who'd break your spirit, so the hero started plotting how to flip him to his side. The entity never got a grip on Abel's mind, no chance at all. It shot away, scrambling for time to hunt down the mage's weakness. That entity swept into the Marling clan's village, and Giselle was left stranded in the room, book clutched in both hands. The hero clocked the opening he'd been waiting for, then he surged forward to seize the man. The grimoire's memories from the spirit finally cut out, then Giselle bursts out of the forest toward her brother. Abel freezes, staring, and blurts, "What are you doing here?" Abel's companions lean in, asking if they really know each other. Then the magician grins and says, "Yep, she's my younger sister," and Maya's jaw drops in pure shock. Merciv stares at the book in Giselle's hands and says it's spilling out a weird aura like a demon's pulling the strings, and Abel panics, asking if she could be possessed. Giselle charges up to the heroes and rushes to Abel's side, apologizing for what she did, sending him crashing into the wilderness. Giselle clamps her hand to her chest and admits she's truly sorry for everything she kept putting Abel through, because in the settlement, things are different now. Giselle bursts into joy and tells Abel her father will forgive him. Then she reaches out her hand and begs him to come home with her. Abel's screams rip through the air as he begs Giselle to be good and drop the book in her hands, because it's dangerous. Giselle snaps back that Sim dragged her here with his magic, because it wasn't some random rule, it was the spirit inside that book, warning that splitting two people meant to marry was a big, unforgivable mistake. Maya catches Tuzel talking marriage, then whips her gaze to Abel with pure shock etched on her face. Giselle steps in and proudly declares, "I'm Abel's fiancée." Maya leans in and demands an answer from Abel, and then Merzef snaps in rage, asking what the magician is planning to do with his daughter. Giselle watched her brother and Maya clash, her face twisted with a grim, uneasy dread. She snaps, "So who exactly are you, Maya?" Maya stands there, then whips around and turns straight to Giselle. The girl presses, asking what kind of bond Maya has with her brother, and Maya just can't bring herself to say a word. Sim can't believe his luck. Abel's stalker girl is actually the grimoire Silfheim left behind. The spirit practically seethes with joy at the thought of earning the evil god's respect. Then he whips around and faces Giselle. He slides into her thoughts, begs her to come back as a team, orders her to do exactly what he says, and keeps his hands off the girl beside him. Giselle presses her brother again, "Who's the girl with him?" Abel's left totally blank, unable to answer, and Sim begs Giselle to drop Maya, but she won't. She keeps grilling the heroes, wondering if they're getting too close. Giselle snaps and blurts the same question again, and Sim lunges in fast, trying to slam her down and regain control. Maya spots Giselle chatting with someone and rushes to Abel, only for him to say, "She's probably talking to the spirit that's haunting the book." Merzef claims he can feel Silfoham's minions' power in the air, and Abel snaps back that this spirit seems to mess with minds only, so it's almost definitely a weaker demon. Sim bristles with rage, convinced his brother and sister are laughing at him, then yanks himself away from the book. The book slips from Giselle's hands, she stumbles, and her world tilts. Then the heroes stare at her in shock. The book crashes to the floor, and Giselle slowly straightens to her full height in eerie silence. Everyone stares at her, holding their breath. Giselle's eyes flash, and then she bursts into laughter. Abel freezes in shock as Merzef leans in and explains that some spirit has seized control of her body. Sim and Giselle's bodies essentially admit the truth, they are under his control. He demands that they step up and submit. The spirit bares its teeth at the mage, since his sister's life is dangling in Sim's hands. Abel's rage is blazing hot, but he doesn't move. Merzef warns that Sim could blurt out Maya's location to the sky god, so they've got to move fast, even if it means Giselle taking the hit. Abel lunges to stop Merzef, and then Giselle snaps a doll into existence. A wooden totem slams into view right above her head. The spirit inside Giselle's body awakens, and life power surges through her. An unbelievable power rockets through the girl's body. She slams off the ground so hard it splinters, then blasts forward and unleashes her attack. Giselle rockets straight at the heroes, and Merzef and Abel just stop dead in pure shock. A spirit barrels straight toward Maya in an instant. She doesn't even get a second to react, just like the other heroes. Giselle's spirit snatches control of Maya's body and casts a spell, lulling her into a deep, unstoppable sleep. Maya dozes off, curled up in Giselle's arms like she's found her safest place. Abel spots the spirit powering up with body-enhancing magic, holding a wooden doll, and the evil thing cackles, saying Giselle chased him so fiercely that she tore through every magic book in the village and even learned the Marling clan's secret techniques. Sim orders Abel to drop his weapons, because now he's got two hostages in his grip. He demands Abel's body and soul, because if the magician wants to save the girls, that's the price he wants. The Doom clan members shout Maya. Merzef tells Abel that if Maya is snatched, everything will fall right into the sky god's plan. Then, of course, he'll have to face Giselle and the evil spirit inside her, and Abel lunges in to stop him. Abel blurts out that Giselle is everything to him, then fires back. How could anyone who hid his daughter for all those years, just to keep her safe, still not get what she means to him? The mage warns that even a reckless frontal charge could end up hurting Maya, so Sim immediately snaps the spell into place, sealing her inside a tight prism-like barrier. The spirit doesn't let go of Maya. Abel finally clicks. If he wants to save both girls, he has to rip Sim out of Giselle's body. With the world tree, breaking the nightmare curse is surprisingly doable, but that spirit's beefed-up body won't let him breathe long enough to finish the spell. Abel spots the Giselle doll and realizes the only safe move left is to shut it down for good. Giselle's Sim wants nothing more than to mow down everyone in his path, so he summons a slash of wind that tears straight through all his enemies. Sharp gusts of wind whip straight at the demons like blades. Maya's father raises a wall before his people, then stands guard like a shield to keep them safe. Abel tells him straight up, that totem is what powers Duzel's body and keeps it fighting at full strength. The magician leans in and says, if you destroy it, you'll tear the spirit right out of your sister's body. The Doom clan's leader roars for every one of his men to strike at once. The demons surge forward, crashing into the moment like a violent wave. Sim slams a spell down onto the ground, like the earth just woke up. The spell smashes the world to dust, chunks of earth whip into the air, yet Merzef barrels ahead like a lightning shadow, cutting through it all. He slips in behind the totem, ready to strike, and Sim grins like he's already won. Maya's father walks straight into a trap. He comes to on the cold ground, handcuffed tight and bound in place with blazing magic rings. The spirit rips the earth from stillness and commands it to rage. The spell crashes down on every other demon like a death sentence. Sim bursts into laughter and tells Abel, yeah, I saw every move the hero made, and I already knew you'd want to pull that totem out to save the girls. The magic rings snap shut and start choking Maya's father, tightening with every second. The evil spirit lines in and demands if Abel is ready to become his servant, then Abel's rage explodes. The Marlene clan is still clawing its way through the mountains, marching forward no matter what. Philo snaps at Shivy, saying the kid's way too slow, there's no chance he can match anyone here. Then Abel's father chimes in, pointing out that the tribe has stayed trapped in their settlement for ages, so that kind of speed shouldn't be a shock. The man lets out a heavy sigh, warning that strange terrain can drain you fast, and Philo snaps back, furious that they can't just leave Giselle alone. So with the rest of the search party stumbling home, longing for their own walls, it's only them left now. Abel's father frets that something's terribly wrong with his son and daughter for them to have gone this far. Then, out of nowhere, a brutal, loud crash rips through the air. Abel's father has no clue what's going on. Philo swears it was an explosion, while Chevy yells that the world beyond the settlement is terrifying. Philo shoves the bushes aside and darts her gaze that way, convinced the sound is coming from there. The heroes spot a cliff, and down below, a brutal battlefield waits in the dust. Merzef feels the magical rings cinch down so hard, they almost choke the life out of him. Sim quizzes Abel about his next move, and the spirit warns that the dumb clan's man won't last the day, so Abel snaps at Sim to stop. Right now, Giselle's soul is locked in, watching the fight unfold. Giselle can't wrap her head around it. Why in the world won't Abel praise her? She crammed every magical technique there was, down to that one special move Abel couldn't crack, yet Abel still refused to praise her. Giselle's calm finally cracks, anger surges in. She seethes, wondering why Abel won't even spare her a single glance. Maya's scream erupts out of nowhere, and every hero's eyes snap straight to her. Sim is stunned. Maya actually chooses her own path, free as daybreak. He shoots a warning at Giselle, don't you dare hurt her, because he still needs Maya alive. Abel pushes for the same thing, but Sim cuts in fast. Hurting Maya is exactly what Giselle truly wants. The magic rings clasping Merzef suddenly lose their spell, and the hold vanishes in an instant. The demon lunges in an instant, striking before anyone can even blink. Sim gets distracted and Abel snaps. This is his moment. He throws a spell straight at the totem, carves a seal in the air, and summons an evil spirit to rip itself out of Giselle's body. Giselle crashes to the ground, then the barrier around Maya shatters, and the unconscious girl tumbles straight into her father's arms. Abel strides up to Sim, still trapped as a floating voice, and snarls that he won't let him rest until he answers, because Sim hasn't said a word yet. Then Abel slams him back into the book with sealing magic. Right after that, Abel bolts straight for Giselle. He rushes up to the girl and blurts out, "Are you okay?" Giselle snaps back to her senses, spots her brother, and immediately demands what happened. The girl insisted she was sure Abel would come back any minute, but as the days dragged on, she finally realized the truth. He wasn't returning the way she hoped. When Sim offered to help her hunt for him, she didn't hesitate. She was sure something terrible happened to Abel, and then Abel finally turns to his sister and apologizes. Abel tells her the demon exploited the crack in her heart, and that none of this is her fault. Tuzel tells Abel she'll stop pushing the marriage if he just agrees to move into the settlement with her like before. Then Abel shoots her a frown. He begs his sister for forgiveness, swears he can't turn back even if the wedding never happened, and right as he says it, Giselle's eyes blow wide open. Abel admits he's tangled himself in a case that's terrifying and weirdly thrilling too, but he swears he'll come back once it's over. The only mystery is when that once it's over moment will actually hit, and Giselle just stares at him, utterly stunned. She can barely catch a word her brother says, so she clamps down on her lips, fighting the urge to speak. Inside her, a rage so wild it borders on madness ignites like fire. Giselle is convinced her brother's being played, strings tied around his kindness and naivety, and she snaps into action, determined to save him, then suddenly jerks up from the ground. She rockets toward the cursed book, snatches it up, and right away the girl starts chanting, begging the trapped spirit inside to answer her. She spots Sin's shadowy form again, and the darkness around her swells until it feels suffocating. Giselle then pressures him to hand over his power, and she pushes Sim into believing she'll wield it better than he ever could. Giselle lets loose an inhuman scream that tears through the air. Abel sprints straight at her. Giselle's body gets swallowed by darkness, and a brutal tornado of dark magic starts spiraling around her. Abel charges toward her, but he's still reeling. How did the spirit break the seal, and just how terrifyingly strong is it? Giselle's body twists and transforms, and she keeps yelling that her brother's being fooled, while everyone around him milks his kindness for all it's worth. Giselle raises her hands and seals the darkness away. She lunges at Maya and then swings the attack straight for her father too. Merzef lunges and yanks Maya in his grip. The spell crashes into the exact spot where they're standing, and a savage roar erupts like the world just shattered. Abel snaps around and there's Giselle chanting spells with no spell at all, like the evil spirit has fully swallowed her whole. The Doom Clan members groan and claw at the ground, trying to force themselves upright. Then one of them finally blurts, "What kind of monster is this?" Giselle whips around at the sound, and Merzef is roaring at his men to scatter and run. Abel slams down a wall of light, and it shields everyone from Giselle's deadly dark spell. Abel can't stop replaying his fight with Ebelhaid, and now he's convinced Giselle's magic circle looks eerily like the one tied to that battle. Same shape, same key features. Merzif blurted out that her magic is forged in the heavenly land, and that Giselle has completely gulped down the power of the heavenly god. Abel seethes because the demon chose the perfect moment to strike, and Merzef snaps back that Giselle shattered the seal all by herself. Abel bursts out that his sister couldn't possibly have done it. She just got swallowed by the demon's pull because she was terrified for him. Maya jumps in to back Abel up, and then Abel's father says nothing at all. Dark thoughts crash over Giselle, screaming that it'd be better if she were left alone with her brother. Abel decides he's not done. He'll try again to rip the evil spirit out of Giselle's body, so he storms to the Doom Clan and begs them for help. The demons splinter off in every direction, snapping Giselle's focus in half, so she whips up spells and blasts every moving target she can spot. Abel plays it cool, then slips a movement spell at just the right second. Poof, the totem materializes behind Giselle. She whips around in an instant and hurls a spell straight at the wooden doll. Giselle's spell blasted the World Tree totem to ashes. Maya's screaming filled the air as Giselle flashed a cruel grin and lined up her next attack. She snaps the spell straight at Maya and Abel. Father Mai snatches them both and rockets out of the way just as the spell blasts past. Abel slams a magical shield around all three, and Giselle keeps hammering spells at him, but Merzef growls that Giselle's soul has already been fully devoured by the evil spirit, and that his own power won't be enough to cut through it. The demon leans in and tells Abel to kill Giselle. No other choice, no time to hesitate. Then Abel shuts it down hard, refusing outright. Merzif fires off a sharp reproach at Abel for not going all in, like, if he'd fought for real, they'd have already won by now, while Maya anxiously hangs on every word from her father as her friend talks back. Abel panics and thinks, without the totem, I can't split that demon away from Giselle's body, so he decides he'll have to go for Abel's sphere instead, or hit her with an equivalent strike. But that kind of attack could wipe Giselle out, so Maya shoots the question, asking if another totem might actually tip the odds in their favor. The girl remembers it when the heroes got chased by magical beasts. Abel slammed together a totem from the ground. Abel shoots back that it isn't magic at all, it's earth magic, but that totem only works if it's carved from a tree that's soaked in magic. Trying to banish a demon with a totem is like cracking a brutal code with a calculator. Abel realizes Giselle's grown even stronger, and now lifting that curse is getting brutally harder. Abel frets because even if he wants to carve a brand new totem right now, he's stuck with crappy wood and zero time to waste. The Marling clan members huddle at a distance, watching the battle unfold like it's a live nightmare. Philo, shaking with terror, blurts out, "What kind of monster is floating up there?" And Shivy spots Giselle and Abel right in the air. Abel has cooked up a plan to take Giselle down. He orders Merzef to draw her attention while he starts casting, and Giselle just keeps blasting magic at everyone. Merzef twists and dodges until rage-fueled focus kicks in, then he cranks up his body enhancement and rockets into the sky with one brutal leap. Abel cracks open the book and starts reading the spell. He's praying Giselle will finally hear his voice. Abel's two magical seals explode with a blinding rush of light magic. The swirling darkness finally unravels and vanishes. Abel stares, jaw clenched, at the spot where his sister used to be. The spell crumbles, then through the smoke-choked clouds, Giselle's possessed demonic face resurfaces, and she comes at them with another ruthless attack. Abel locks in and keeps gripping the shield, while Maya's father rips into him, screaming that they'll all go down just like this. Maya shouts for Abel, and the mage grits his teeth, straining every ounce of power just to keep the barrier standing against his sister's relentless assaults. He whips around to specific forces and summons them for help. Suddenly, a whole swarm of tiny wooden totems erupts behind Giselle. Abel clocks that the totems aren't top tier, but there are so many asterisks of them, that he's convinced they'll overwhelm the evil spirit for good. Abel summons a spirit and forces it to rip Giselle's body from the inside. A magical surge snakes through the tiny totems and slams into Giselle's body, and just seconds later, boom, she's back in human form, then drops from the sky like her strength got cut off. Abel whips out his wind magic and rockets to catch his sister just in time. He barrels up to Gazelle and demands to know if she recognizes him. Giselle fights her way back to consciousness, inch by painful inch. She spots her brother, and Abel practically explodes with how happy he is. Abel lets out the truth. He totally underestimated the demon, assuming it was some low-level evil. Then it crushes him with how deadly it is, because he never saw it coming that the demon could seize his sister's body and take full control. Yet again, this creepy, faceless dark thing tries to protest, saying Sim's power got yanked by Giselle and she used it like it was hers. But Sim shuts that down, admitting the brother and sister are on another level, so dangerous that even a god would struggle to deal with them. Merzef spots a pile of tiny totems and demands to know where they came from. Then Abel lanes in and says they're wooden dolls straight from his home. Abel beams and says, like he already knew it, that his mentor definitely heard the totems calling. Dragging those totems back home through teleportation was a bust. They had zero magical power, so Abel hit the only play he had. He blasted sonic animal repellents, blasting vibrations through the air to summon them. The villagers and the headman all froze when that eerie sound suddenly echoed through town. Abel's mentor caught the meaning in it like a warning flare, then rushed to the magician's house. Abel's mom hauled him inside and showed him the totems hidden in their house. Her mentor lined in and told her Abel had sent him a message. He wanted him to teleport every single totem straight to the edge of the country. The settlement's leader snapped into action, calling it an emergency, and slammed a gigantic teleportation seal onto the totems. To push moving matter in one direction, you need magic power that scales with the distance, period, but slap down a magic circle for two-way movement, and suddenly it works even when the matter has zero magical power. The village leader drew a blazing magic circle, and Abel braced himself, waiting to finally get his hands on the totems. Abel still remembered the first time he built those sound devices. The boss doubted they'd do a thing, until Abel fired back that he could send a coded message with Morse code. Abel figured the village would only use it as an alarm, while the magician chased his dream of a mobile phone, and the mentor couldn't even catch half the words Abel was saying. The old magician couldn't shake the feeling that Abel might not be meant to stay in the clan's village forever. The feudal lord and his soldiers storm onto the battlefield, screaming like they've lost their minds, while Abel stands there, utterly confused, trying to make sense of it all. Someone yells Abel, and the magician's so wiped out he feels like he's slipping into hallucination, because it sounds exactly like his father's voice. Abel's father rockets in with Philo and Shivi, charging straight toward him. Abel freezes, stunned, and blurts out, "What are you all doing here?" The feudal lord demands an answer, and Abel shoots back an apology, then swears he'll set everything right. Merdzef snaps that there's zero time for chatter. After beating the dark god's minion but losing the totems, the danger just got way worse, so the heroes need to sprint to the world tree right now. Abel shoots back, agreed. Abel dips his head and apologizes to the feudal lord again, swearing that when he comes back he'll set everything right, because right now he's got to bolt on an urgent mission to save the whole country. Abel rushes to his family and declares, "I have to stop the gods' revival, no matter what." He apologizes, swearing he won't go back home until he gets this done, while Abel's father just stays locked in silence, utterly baffled. Philo says when you're talking about God, there's nothing left to do, just believe. Giselle tightens her lips like she's holding back a storm. Suddenly the girl erupts into loud, desperate cries. Abel and his father freeze in shock, and right beside them, Philo and Shivi stare too. Philo can't stop thinking about how hard Giselle busted her tail to meet Abel, and how she finally tracked him down. The pilot swoops in and begs Abel to come along, plus he wants Kidgel right by his side. Giselle goes dead quiet, yet the tears keep pouring down her cheeks, and Philo leans in to say she's almost as good at magic as Abel, so she's going to be a total game changer on this journey. The girl tells Abel she's ready to roll, and she practically bounces with excitement to start the journey, only for Abel to freeze, stunned that she's so willing. He whips around to face his father, eyes locked as his thoughts churn with intensity. Their dad just shrugs and lets the kids do whatever they want, since they'll ignore him anyway. Then he tells them to come back once their business is done. Giselle dashes to Abel, gripping his attention, and swears she'll be absolutely indispensable in the fight against the gods. Abel says the very first move is stopping the evil god. The magician and his crew took off for a brand new adventure, and Abel grinned as he shouted that he still had a ton left to do in this world.